Hello, and welcome to Spotlight, the official podcast of Grapple. I'm Benno.
I'm JP.
And I'm Matty.
And we are here at the start of another month that is about to be over. It's only it's a 29-day month. It's a leap year, which I used to be fascinated with as a kid. But more than it being a leap year month and a February month, it's a dealer's choice month. I think Matty's brainchild from back in the day, the third one we do these things bi-yearly. I think that's the phrase. Yeah. So yeah, we're in the pre-show, sorting out the running order for this one. Matty's got the first choice that we'll be getting into in a minute. But yeah, not much to plug this month. It's easy. These ones, dealer's choice month. But yeah, there you go, Matty. Your genius idea comes to fruition again. Always one of the best months here on Grapple.
Yeah, it's always, as you say. But the initial pitch for this was like, obviously, we've got to watch whatever the other guys pick, but none of us have threw anyone under the bush yet. We've all been quite sound with each other and not pick nothing that we don't really want to do. So let's see if that'll change this month, JP.
Yeah. Always looking forward to this. Matty Patterson is what I think of you when you said with this concept as well. That's where we are. The brains behind this. Our Royal Rumble. Is what this is. It's always like the quality ratio. Like I say, no one has thrown it under the bus, but I think for each of us, it's like, why would we do that to ourselves? Because there are plenty of horrible topics to pick from, but also loads of brilliant stuff. So, yeah, I'm completely. I don't know. I've some thoughts about what you're going to do for it. I don't know. I'm very intrigued, mate.
Can't fuck a rumble up, lads. It's not possible. You can't possibly fuck up the finish or the choice for the victor in a rumble and then have to work backwards. More on that later. Might explain how Matty's here with us for the first hour. We're either about to argue it. We'll stay friends for this part of the show, Matty, because I don't know what's coming a little bit later on. But yeah, you can't go wrong.
It's one of them. Sorry, we don't even I don't put no thought anymore into our group chat. I just wait till next time we record, and that's when we get our true feelings and our true opinions.
Oh no. I got up on Saturday morning and I saw the Discord popping. Matty was getting again we talked about on the pre-show, Matty was getting his licks in before I got out of bed at about dinner time on Saturday. But we'll catch up with all that in a bit. We've got a fucking week worth of wrestling to catch up on, obviously. All of the real WWE stuff with Vince McMahon to talk about, the Cody stuff, and also actually a really good week in AEW to chat, as well as a bit of Rev Pro and other stuff we'll be talking in a little while. But before we get there, Matty, you've had a good 15 minutes now to think about it. So dealer's choice.
About 7.5. All right, to be fair,
we all had something prepared. What are you going to put us through? So if anyone doesn't know, if anyone's new to the YouTube or new to Patreon, we do have this month once a year. We're on the Patreon. We will all each get a week where we decide to set the agenda and choose the bonus show we're reviewing on the Patreon or for YouTube members as well. And again, rules are what do we say, Matty, in the pre-show? 3 hours for the must-watch, but can go longer than that if there's optional content. But biggest thing is, mate, whatever you choose, we've got to watch. So very much looking forward to the best of I'm not even gonna say it. I'm scared it's gonna happen. Some of your
it's gonna happen one day, but it's not
a mixtape. What are we getting?
I've decided this month I'm not gonna put you through Randall or Cope, as you call them these days.
Oh, thank God.
That. JP, that's mainly for you though, JP. It's mainly just for you, that, my friend. Because I do want to put Benno through that one day. But
I've turned the corner, mate. Anytime we do those 2006 to 2008 shows,
well, it was.
You know what?
Connor knows. Connor in the chat there on the Discord. He knows that Cope, the rated R Raw years, was going to be an option, JP. That was very, very close to happening. So that would have been Edge from 2005 to 2007. That was covering the Cena feud and all that stuff. That was going to be my choice. But I am... much against my own beliefs here, JP. He's done me head in the last 5 days, but I announced it on our last Patreon show. My choice for this dealer's choice to open the month up will be Hollywood Rock, the entire run, which is about 4 months. So it's not that long.
Timely.
But we're going to go there. Exactly. That's why I done it as well, because I thought, all right, he's done me head in, but he's in the news. So yeah, Hollywood Rock is my choice.
What does that cover then exactly, Hollywood Rock?
It's literally from the original one interview is on the Raw 10th anniversary where he does it via satellite, and they're booing him at the award show. They're just booing him. And he's teasing this new character. And then when he comes back before the Hogan rematch at No Way Out, that's when it'll kick off. So there's only about 5 or 6 matches, really. It's a lot of segments, a lot of promos with Hurricane, a couple of rock concerts. There's quite a bit in there, but I remember it being great stuff. And I'd like to go back, obviously, to watch it, which we're going to. So hopefully it holds up. So what's your guys' original thoughts of that, Benno?
I mean, I loved them at the time. Like, I loved that run. I loved that. The Hurricane stuff's brilliant until a week later, Triple H fucks it all up. It's a couple of weeks later, maybe, but like, it's not long, is it? He puts Hurricane over, and then here comes Trips. Maybe throw that in as a bonus
on the sicko list.
That's what I can remember. I can remember the promos and stuff like that as well. Like you say, a couple of like the later matches and stuff. You could even go a little bit longer, couldn't you, if you wanted to? But I'll leave it up to you. You can cultivate it. That's perfect. Yeah, ideal for the times that we're living in. We might get Hollywood Rock 2 coming soon. So
yes, we might. And the theme tune, JP, the theme tune is just unbelievable. One of like all-time favorites as well. If you would have been
out of commission during this, wouldn't you, JP? Were you watching during like the Hollywood Rock stuff? Have you seen it?
No, I don't. Like, I am aware of it, and I would have read around it, and I would have seen bits of it, but I don't have any like kind of substantial memories of it. Other than I can remember, like in my head, it's like, okay, how good was he? Because I can kind of remember it being really enjoyable. Like I said, 4 months, I was like, fucking hell. That was like, that'll be kind of, I'm really looking forward to it, but I have no kind of memory. So it's quite fun going into this one, quite blind. So yeah, I'm looking forward to this, and incredibly timely. It looks like you would have done this really in March to build up to WrestleMania, given everything that's going on, more of which are non. So it feels, the timeliness for it is pretty spot on. Certainly good from a marketing perspective, if nothing else.
Speaking about film runs lately, like, Jim Carrey's film run we done on the pre-show the other week, like Rock's run, he has 3 pay-per-view matches as Hollywood Rock against Hogan, Steve, and Goldberg. Like, names, just big names, isn't it? All over the show there. So what a run that is.
I'm looking forward to it. Yeah.
It's cracking.
I'd say not the good Hogan match. It's the other one, but it's still it's still good. It's still worth it. It's no excited. There you go. You're 3 for 3 there, Matt. We're excited. I'm sure Gareth will be into it as well. It's just going to be me and you now to be bastards, JP, for the weeks coming up. And for his pick as we go through the month. Now I know. You think we're going to be nice because you were nice, Matt?
And I thought I'd be the one to turn heel first. Not you, Benno. Come on.
I've got some ideas.
You've done fellow on strict, JP, which we'll go into again later on.
Oh, you're going to love my mixtape just called Points, and it's just going to be like the history of the G1.
Not just pointing to the WrestleMania side now.
Just lads pointing to it. Hoops. That's what it had.
Yeah, might stretch that 3-hour run time, but no, very excited for that. And speaking of dealer's choice, so we'll record Matty's choice this week. Then it's Hollywood Rock. That's the first one on the agenda, and mine, JP, and Garrett's will follow. Speaking of dealer's choice, not the last time, but the time before. JP, we talked the Von Erichs, which was the JP choice when we looked at Heroes of World Class. And the other thing on the page that's just dropped that I'm going to be heavily plugging through the month as I've seen people finally getting out to the cinema this week to see it. We did manage to sneak it in, JP, just a couple of I'd say a couple of minutes to spare. Maybe it was a little past midnight by the time, my fault, by the time I got the file uploaded, but we just about got it into January. Our Iron Claw Film Club. Anyone who's seen it this week can go check it out. Spoilers. We had a very good chat about it. Thought it's one of our better film clubs. So people will get around to getting to listen to it by the end of March or whenever it is. People in this country. I'm spoiled. I actually had 2 more spares. I should have told you, Matt. I had 2 more spares yesterday for it. I don't know if you would have gone. To see it in fact. But
I will.
You got to see it. However you it now.
Out of our Discord and stuff, there's a lot who've seen it now. So hopefully by the weekend, I'm hearing rumours that there could be a copy available. JP, hopefully. So
okay.
Hopefully,
you let Uncle JP get to work on that side of it as well. Having already seen it. Not having paid the money for it though, as well, which again I have to
thank you to Andy Ogden and James Brewster.
Always again for that. But I think that's one of our best film clubs. I really do. I thought it was like a really kind of cracking review, and I know for most people, like I say, it's coming out here. I don't know why. I don't know if they're waiting for half term, which doesn't really seem like the half term film. Do you take your kids to go and see Wish, or do you take them to go and see Iron Claw? I'd say don't be a coward. Take them to see Iron Claw. It might put some hairs on their chest that way, which ironically none of the Von Erichs seem to have, but I digress. So it's like, I think it's absolutely cracking. Like, I really, really like enjoyed recording it, and we went into like quite a bit from it as well. And then obviously chat to us about it on the Discord as well at the same time. But also want to give plugs out for Time. If you haven't seen Time, it's from January 1992, where myself, Matty, Gareth, and the brilliant Liam, LF Doom, who always delivers just in terms of just in terms of everything that's on that as well. It is a wild and wacky ride, and yeah, we've got like proper main event soaps, like a wild top 10 in terms of genres. I'll tell you what, it's harking back to a golden age. Not politically, it was the Tories in charge. We didn't have Labour for another 5 years yet, but it was definitely like kind of exciting. Apart from the sport, which had Wrexham beating Arsenal, which just pisses me off even to mention. But
don't forget the big one. Who'd win in a big match? Blobby or Bully? That's
the Blobby Bully mate. Well, as well, yeah. There's a lot of like kind of like discussions around Noel's house party as well, and a good bit of Blockbusters chat in there. So yeah, brilliant stuff. So go to the YouTube channel, youtube.com/@grapple for that. And if you want to hear more of us, obviously you can go to the Patreon, patreon.com/grapple, where if you go there now, you'll see we've got the dealer's choice graphic up there that Benno's got on screen for video viewers as well. So obviously you would have heard the pre-show, which determined the order of who got the dealer's choice and will do for the next couple of weeks. Then the show we absolutely love recording as well, the weekend show, which I have to admit I listened back to Matty revealing some of doing the previews for XPW from a couple of weeks ago. It still makes me laugh.
More than proper there, JP.
It's always half the fun. We do that. We've got the Monday news update. We've got the midweek news dump. And retro episode 4 as well. So it's a monster month, and all of the dealers' choices are going to be cracking. And Matty's revealed already Hollywood Rock. So get yourself across there. Patreon.com/grapple.
There we go. So yeah, I look forward to all of that. And yeah, as JP did allude to, it's like fresh month, so perfect time to dive in, whether it be Patreon or YouTube. Special shout out for on the YouTube if you're watching this spotlight replay on as I tried to get into a routine, put it up about 12 o'clock day after record. If you fancy ever joining us live, there is a introductory price over on the YouTube, just a low price, $3.99. You can watch the spotlight live and the weekend show live, just those shows. So if that's all you're after, rather don't know why you wouldn't want it, but rather than dealer's choice and the news updates and all of the other bonus stuff, if you just want the current affairs stuff, or you just want to catch us live on a Monday or a Friday, that option's open to you as well. But speaking of that, weekend show on Friday, JP, we did catch up once again with the unfortunate no positive way to get there, but the updates on the whole Vince McMahon story on Friday. Can't talk, and we are again kicking off the show with WWE again this week. Don't worry, there's a lot of AEW praise to come later on for the fans out there. But yeah, we talked on the weekend show the little bits of news that had come through over the days between Spotlight and the weekend show with regards to Vince McMahon, the Wall Street Journal, the federal investigation, John Laurinaitis. To be fair, actually, there was a lot that came through in those 24 hours or so over Thursday and Friday. Not so much over the weekend, but definitely wanted to check in, JP. Definitely can't lose sight of the fact, even if they're trying to make us the cunts, that this is obviously the biggest story ongoing in wrestling. On the weekend show, obviously, we caught up with the news that John Laurinaitis' lawyer, Edward Brennan, described Johnny Ace as a victim to, which we all know was utter bollocks, but definitely gave us a bit of an insight into the fact that the people are maybe abandoning ship, I would say, as far as the WWE side, and that's going to happen when the second bit of that news that broke on Thursday night into Friday morning, which was the Wall Street Journal noting the federal authorities in New York have been investigating the allegations of sexual assault and sex trafficking against Vince McMahon, also investigating, and don't get this left out of the headline, the WWE, and obviously when it comes to the Janelle Grant case, of course, the defendants of Vince McMahon WWE itself, which I think is getting lost a little bit in the discussion, and of course John Laurinaitis. But yeah, that federal investigation probably tipped us the wink, JP, as to why John Laurinaitis would be jumping ship. And yeah, obviously we heard that was the reason. There was a warrant executed at Vince McMahon's address. Big detail that came out that they had Vince McMahon's phone, subpoenaed them for documents, and the WWE, with relation to rape, sex trafficking, sexual assault, and anything therein related as well. JP tells you one, what that was about, and two, that this very serious story isn't going away, even if maybe things have gone a bit quiet over the weekend.
No, I think after the initial kind of bombshell report as well, and all the stuff that happened on Friday, just as we were going to be recording the weekend show regarding kind of John Laurinaitis, and the fact that the case itself seems to be expanding, which is probably the situation where it's in, where the things that you hear is about more people approaching the lawyers. It's almost like it's becoming like a class action lawsuit at various days, or certainly lawsuits from all kind of angles. And you can imagine, like you say, it's company wide as well, that this is within the kind of culture within WWE. I know, for example, there was an update as well where Constantine Kiros was asked, she'd represented Ashley Massaro as well. She was asked to kind of comment and spoke a lot about the kind of the toxic issue, said that the case regarding Ashley Massaro was kind of covered up effectively, and these feel like stories that we're gonna have that drip feed there as well. And she also mentioned, the lawyer also mentions as well about the kind of physical state that Ashley Massaro was in, and this is very much one of the kind of lesser accusations, but a constant one regarding Vince McMahon is the kind of lack of healthcare, the lack of kind of care generally for the wrestlers, obviously put down as independent contractors, and all of the various injuries which kind of led to has led to all manner of tragedy there. So you've also got the weird state of affairs of there is an attempt to remove Vince McMahon from the 2K24 game as well, which I'm assuming is within, obviously he'll be some kind of, normally would have been some sort of playable, downloadable character. They would have done a version of that. But also within the storyline, I imagine within the story that the games like to do, eventually there's always a point where Vince McMahon ends up getting involved. And so he's having to be removed. I think Brock Lesnar's been taken off the front cover there as well. This is where we are in, where we've got TKO effectively doing damage limitation. And I think, when I get to speak about it, these are the things that we're going to say that a lot of the other week's news doesn't feel entirely unrelated from what is happening here. And I think as much as they may want to avoid kind of talking about it, or the Vince story being in the news cycle, I think there's just going to be natural lulls where other stuff kind of ends up coming in that's completely superficial compared to these allegations, but they're not going away. And the investigation appears to be getting bigger. And yeah, I think that's where we are at this point at time of recording on Tuesday.
Yeah, and you don't get much more serious than a federal investigation. I said that on Friday, and I stand by it. Vince McMahon is fucked. The WWE,
totally
fucked. The severity of this, I don't think has been fully grasped. Even just the idea that this is the end of it. We've chopped the head off. Vince is gone. More is going to come out. It sounds like, and obviously this is, another element of the story. You can't, understandably, Janelle Grant and their team are saying that no, they're not after money here. They want to see this go the full depth of, a court trial, and they want to see all of this information come out. They're quoted this week of saying that, their motivation is that, for more people to come forward. And, obviously, the lawyer, Constantine Kairos is, gets a mixed response. I think
my bad.
He was, obviously representing a lot of different wrestlers, and there was all that stuff about injuries over time and stuff, and he was kind of described as a bit of a quack lawyer in the press, but he was also representing Ashley Mazzaro, and he's come forward and made declarations as well, specifically obviously the really sad story that is there with Ashley Mazzaro does involve while they were on the trip on a military base, wasn't it, the initial allegation, but there is also, which WWE denied, but we're seeing little bits kind of getting highlighted by Konstantin Kairos that talks about how toxic culture of WWE, the fact that refusing Vince McMahon was an element of why that Ashley Mazzaro stopped getting used on TV and stopped being a part of WWE and stopped getting booked. Like that's a detail of that story that wasn't new, but those types of things are going to keep coming out into the spotlight now. They're going to be looked over with a fine-tooth comb. If the feds are involved, they're going to be speaking to all of these parties. They're going to be speaking to the different women involved. They're going to be speaking to people within WWE, and they're going to all of the little kind of news bits you hear from like a Sean Ross Sapp, or you hear from a David Bixen span. There are legitimate media out there that are still digging into this and still trying to find out more and being helped wade these waters, by those wrestling people. And yeah, no stone is going to get left unturned here. So yeah, it's not something that's going away anytime soon. It's not something that's over just because we have the shiny WrestleMania, conversation that, we will have also, in a minute. It is an irrelevant wrestling story. But yeah, it's not going to go away. It is all there, and it is all still playing out in very, very real life. And if this does go to trial, if the feds do uncover more, which it feels very, very likely they will, if you've got Vince McMahon's fucking phone, never mind the stuff that the people in the media are going to be doing digging on story wise. This won't be the end of it, and yeah, I'm sure we'll continue to hear more as time goes on. JP.
Yep. It will still be going. It won't be going away anytime soon. Like you say, there's just going to be some weeks, I think, where it's going to be very front and center of the news cycle. I think that's just the nature of a news cycle. And it's also the nature of building up a legal case and building up a case for prosecutors to be able to win. That takes time. That takes getting loads and loads of corroborating witnesses. And I think the big thing here is that we've always kind of known that it's opening up somewhat of a Pandora's box by looking at the kind of the crimes of Vince McMahon alone, let alone the culture of WWE and the historic culture there as well, which, you think of the way that it has been in a lot of the kind of horror stories, you think, and that's even within that, the kind of just the sphere of wrestling rather than the kind of, the administrative teams and things like that. So yeah, this story isn't going to be going away. And I think, in some ways though, you have to say the fact it hasn't been front of the news cycle, and the fact that it was, I don't know, like transitioning this necessarily into the kind of the things that happen.
It's what they want, JP, the bastards. It's what they want.
It's what they want. And, it's something we're going to talk about. But I think the first point I want to make before even looking deep into the weeds for this is I just want to make the point before kind of like sitting back almost to say they wouldn't be making all of these changes is partly for a company that has generally had a steady hand and has been very kind of, in the main, but bar injury, not wanting to change long-term plans. The idea of doing this stuff like this in order to try and get ahead of a news cycle, that's classic PR damage limitation stuff. As weird as it might seem for like professional wrestling, and it can't, you can't say that the Vince story hasn't had some kind of influence on this. It's not, these two things aren't existing entirely and they're in like a vacuum, like separately away from each other.
Well, what you're alluding to, obviously, is the Cody story from this week. I don't even know where to start with it, but you're not wrong. I mean, I've got some doubts on the degree to which it is as black and white as that, but you're 100% right in what you say about how it's been informed by what's going on, because there is very clearly a power struggle going on in WWE right now. There is very clearly like unrest, and maybe there should be, because I've kind of been duped into being like, oh, this is bullshit. If Triple H just had full control of creative, then none of this bullshit will be happening. Well, the company probably shouldn't have full control of creative if he proves to have been as knowledgeable as the Vince McMahon stuff as I think he might be. They probably rightly want to make some kind of a exit plan if they want to be able to move on at any point from Triple H and have other people in place, which I think is definitely an element of this story as well. But yeah, to try and recap on where we are with this story, Matty. Obviously, we woke up on Saturday morning, or you did, to the Discord going a little bit wild, based on events on SmackDown, which of course was the Cody Rhodes segment with Roman Reigns, as we had Cody come out and essentially defer his world title match. Not after Roman Reigns had spent 5 minutes talking down the idea of going for Seth Rollins' title, and the utter the fact that's it's a big card belt, that one, isn't it, Matt? It doesn't really count
for Seth for me more than the title.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree.
He gets a pop set, and he did get his own back on Raw. But yeah, obviously we had all of that was set up for Cody to come out, and obviously as we all now know, introduce The Rock, which I think it had been reported early in the day that he was there on SmackDown, which he likely will be going forward as far as TV goes. So yeah, they were the happening to SmackDown. Will melted down over the weekend. We can discuss to what extent did they be leaned into this or didn't. They certainly leaned into it when it came to Raw last night. As far as again, there's misleading and I think maybe contradictory reports on whether they were handing out signs or not. It does sound like it was fans themselves who set all that up, but make no mistake, the way the cameras were focused and the words that the wrestlers were saying on Monday, we're definitely at a situation now where they're very much leaning into it. But yeah, there's a lot there to my Matty. I don't know where we start, but
where do you?
What do you think?
I've changed my mind about 20 times. I think it's classic. I think they've worked themselves into a shoot. I think they've honestly, I've changed my mind so much. Like the initial waking up was like, even though what's the segment, I was like, I got took away by The Rock. So I was like, wow, we're finally getting to see Rock v Roman Reigns. Because for me, it's a year or two too late anyway. I didn't want to wait till next year for that. So I'm thinking, right, we get that. But then when
it's annoying waiting a year for a match you want to see and somebody to beat Roman Reigns, isn't it? It's horrible when you got to wait 365 days for that.
But try and unpack this first. That's another kettle of fish we should unpack. So it's like, so I'm like that, yeah. So then I got on the Discord and I was like, right, everyone's just piling on. And then I thought, but then the more headlines and reports that were coming out, Ben, as you said, you go way back to even when The Rock joined the board at TKO, which was way before the Royal Rumble. This match was set in stone. So then why is Triple H apparently booking Cody to win the Royal Rumble? It's the power struggle, like you said. I can't get past that now. More than all that. That's in my mind more than anything. It's that if he agreed to that, why is he book Cody to win the Royal Rumble? And like, so I've heard even theories now, conspiracy theories, like, was Punk meant to win the Rumble? And then he told the referee that's so, but it's making you think all kinds, because how can that happen? How can that happen? Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. We're getting very contradictory reports. Like Meltzer's leaning very much into this is all a work, and it's been a work since day one, and everyone knew. And it's like you can probably guess who Meltzer's source might be. Could have the initials DJ. Who knows? But like Fightful at time of record, like this is how quickly. Oh, the origin.
I'm all right. No, apologies. Sorry. I thought I was on mute and I bloody well wasn't. Sorry. That's
what JP thinks of it.
Yeah.
That was him blowing the nose, not flatulence. That was
yeah, for the audio listeners. But Sean Rassaf, Fightful Selective, have just put out that it seems to be like depends on who you speak to.
Yeah.
Who knew what when. Like there's definitely people they're speaking to who appear to be saying it was the planned date and far as back as January the 3rd.
Yeah.
That as of the 1st of January, there are meetings putting this all in motion. Meltzer's reported and Fightful have backed it up that a lot of this is to do with The Rock taking his position in TKO as part of it. He got his name, didn't he? And also a WrestleMania main event seemed to be part of the discussions with him and Nick Khan. As Matty alluded to there, Matty, there seems to be some back and forth there, JP, on whether it's, something that only Nick Khan and certain people at the very top of TKO knew, and it didn't come as low as Triple H's pay grade. Contradict the information being told to wrestlers. It sounds like from the Fightful report that at least as far as up until and including the Royal Rumble weekend, the wrestlers and the writers and the people involved were told that, oh, no. It's going to be CM Punk and Seth Rollins, and it's going to be Roman Reigns and Cody Rhodes. Cody believed that right up until the Rumble. I think it's obvious as anything when you look at the Rumble itself as well, and the post-match, Cody's literally pointing at Roman. So I think it's pretty clear that, at least from that point of view, Cody Rhodes at least thought he was setting up a match with Roman Reigns. It's where the work starts, where the work ends. It's where, do you believe, JP, that Triple H was completely blindsided by this? Is it purely, is it him booking one thing, but it turns out that TKO and The Rock are muscling and doing another? Is it him booking, is TKO telling Triple H that it's going to be Rock and Roman, and he's still trying to have his cake and eat it too, and force through a Cody Rhodes win and force through the plans that obviously he's had in motion for a pretty much a calendar year now. It just all stinks, JP, of it's an episode of Succession, it's Game of Thrones, it's fucking people coming for each other's heads back there. It sounds like, to borrow a phrase, a sloppy shot. Are you muted, mate?
Sorry about that. I'm very wary because I've got a horrible cold, as people have heard just a few minutes ago as well. In terms of where I think this is, the reason why I kind of veer much more towards the side of it being a sloppy shop is I don't see what the beneficial business side of it, if it isn't to effectively have putting The Rock front and center and The Rock having a match, and the idea of him being so heavily, obviously tied to the company now. And almost feeling like this, TKO view him because of obviously the links with Endeavor and everything else. This is a guy they kind of want to come in and take over. And you've got stuff that's really happening out in front of the TV, because the Triple H era of this has not, it's not gone down this route. It's been kind of we've always used the word competent, and that's always what it's been. And it's always been very, very kind of long-sighted. So they've known where they're going to for Mania, and those are the things they want to do. And this is very, very short-sighted, because you can have the argument about the business metrics, but let's face it, the show's sold out.
I was going to say that.
Pay-per-view is a bit of a non-entity these days. They've just sold the TV rights deals. The next biggest deal is the Peacock deal, and that's not till 2026. So how much real interest in real terms is The Rock wrestling on this show really going to generate? For a guy who, let's face it, isn't that far away and tends to get physical at least kind of once a year to kind of scratch that itch. So it goes against everything that they've kind of done. And I think the feeling is that the overriding of Triple H is, this is where I say it feels like the kind of The Rock and The Rock's people just saying, I haven't really got much faith in Triple H because he's so closely linked to the McMahon era of the company, and that's something that they have to kind of move away from. And how he was at the press conference as well, because this is a company that's looking at the PR side of it, and they'll change a main event in order to do that, and be damned with the kind of long-term plans, because, here's The Rock and here's the pop that he got at SmackDown as well. I mean, it makes me think that this is a real unnecessary risk as well, because of it's very antagonistic towards the audience. These kind of changes, this current fan base in the main are incredibly forgiving. Even when the big shows, as we've spoken about in the last few months, most of the big shows, they haven't hit the heights, really, with starting from SummerSlam to the Royal Rumble, that they could have done. But the crowd have stuck with them. They're still buying tickets. They're still, ratings have generally held up this year against the NFL pretty well, considering like the kind of percentage declines that they end up taking. I think this year they've actually kind of done okay, and obviously they're enormously like kind of profitable as well. It just doesn't. I look at all of these changes and it feels like this is about trying to affect a news cycle and thinking putting The Rock into it in a mainstream perspective is talking about WWE in an entirely different light, and that these changes have been enforced and that Triple H kind of has to end up working around them, even if they don't make any sense. And I was, it's frustrating for me because I thought, what is the situation they can do to rescue it? And I've only got one scenario where I think they can kind of rescue it. And that's like you make The Rock special referee or something along those lines, because then you've got an excuse to build to the kind of the year afterwards as well.
He stepped aside, JP. I was thinking that today. People say he's already basically said and stepped aside. I'm not coming for you at WrestleMania, he said. So it's like, how do you?
And he didn't have to say that line, did he?
No.
And that's sorry.
There's a lot.
Yeah.
Come on, Ben.
There's a lot to unpack here. I mean, we can get into how they can fix it, but like, I have to say, like, I think they fell into like you said, Matty. It has now become a work, but it's a fucking if it's a plan, it's a fucking stupid plan.
Yeah,
like, it's really fucking stupid.
Cody's the guy, Cody's the guy already.
But he's not Brian Goetz's guy. He's not The Rock's guy. Like I believe that element of it. I think clearly, like there's some kind of power struggle going on backstage. There's a reason why the different news people are getting different elements of this story from different people. If we can say anything with certainty, it's that different people in the company clearly knew wildly different things about what the plans were. That's not good, but that tells you that like there's an unsettling there. The fact that Brian Goetz is backstage, and posting photos from the crowd. I know he always goes when he's there with The Rock, but his presence is not a coincidence. Like, he is there. I can't imagine him taking over from Triple H fully as like the creative man behind the WWE. I also don't think he'd be a great reset from the problems of the past when a lot of the stuff he wrote, look it up, in the early 2000s. I don't think it was particularly clean cut. And just look at some of Rock's promos over the years. It'll be interesting to see how he's scripted there going forwards. But that part of it, like, I absolutely believe there's a Game of Thrones, there's a Succession, whatever your analogy is, there's a clearly like boardroom strife going on back there. But I do draw the line at like, is this really the plan? Because like you've alluded to there, JP, it's just a really daft plan. Because this was a company, Matt. Like, as much as like I'll get on you and we'll go back and forth and do it, and there's probably elements of this story me and you are going to disagree on. The one thing we do agree on is over the last couple of years, WWE have, at least to their fan base, made themselves the babyface. We are in a world where, probably the biggest wrestling story of all time has happened over the last couple of weeks, and they've taken a major hit from it. If there was ever a time, I understand the distraction tactics element of it, but if there was ever a time that you didn't need more bad will, it was now, because they were coasting and they were a company that was just, for after years and years and years of fighting their fans tooth and nail on everything, they had fan trust again. Even through the Vince stuff, and we can have our opinions on whether, it is a little bit gross that there's certain elements of the fan base that want to pay no attention to Vince McMahon and all of that news story, but do want to talk about this. I'm looking at you, Busted Open Radio, and outlets like it. Like, there is an element of that that's been achieved, that you have done that sleight of hand, and the people who want to are looking the other way. But overwhelmingly, I just think, Matt, it's just a bad plan, because it's turned their hardcore fans against them, at least for a weekend. We'll see what happens going forward. It has undone all that good work that, like I say, I think people I've said it before, so I'm not immune from it, and I think there's an argument there. People over-egg the pudding of, well, all the rebellious fans went to AEW. They definitely did to an extent, but I think it gets overstated too. Because the other element of why WWE fans stopped rebelling, it's not just that AEW existed. It's that WWE, for all intents and purposes, Matt, presented a product their fans wanted to see. They didn't fight them on stuff like Bryan Danielson and the other examples over the years. They, for better or worse, gave their fans what they want. People were in the right spots. How many times did we talk about it, Matt? They had fucking, baby faces aplenty on the roster who were all ready. And, there was like this happy atmosphere around at least the product itself.
The wrestling,
They were winning, and like I just think if this is a plan, the plan to like blow all that up and blow all that goodwill up is utterly ridiculous for me, Matt. It's just like you say that if anything, they need a good PR right now. And they got the exact opposite of it over the weekend. Again, we can talk about whether they're pivoting now and what's going to come next. But yeah, this was your plan. Fuck me, it needs to go back to the booking table or the drawing table or whatever. Go back to the boardroom and hash this out because it was a fucking bad plan that was badly executed.
Well, like I said before, honestly, when I first watched it, as I said, repeat myself, I was drawn in. I was like, whoa, we're getting this. But once again, when I took back from like posting on the Discord and realizing and going, wait there, I need to go and watch that again. Watched it a few times and I was like, you've just said it there. And as JP said, it's an unnecessary risk to do this. As you say, everything was happy, product-wise, of course, we're speaking about. Yeah. Everything was there. Cody, as I said there, why tamper with Cody? He's the one that has been carrying the show as a wrestler. That has been built up for Roman. That has, and then we go back and forth on who should have won last year. But even we said last week, I'm not going to.
I mean, we wouldn't be here if Cody had just won, But anyway, we can talk about that.
No one did expect this, though, did they? You know what I mean? It's like,
a year's a long time, but yeah.
Even I conceded on every show since probably SummerSlam. Cody is the guy that's got to beat Roman. It's been built up that much. It's that obvious. They had the stare down months ago. He's been referring to the story for 2 years, all that. So it was like, even I, as a Roman guy, was like, yeah, Cody's the right guy. He's got to beat him. And then this comes in. It's like, as you say, I was one of them, Ben. We've had discussions. We've had many of these in car rides we've been on as well. It's like, them fans have gone to the diehards, the diehard wrestling IWC, where they've all gone to the AEW. But you're right. And even I was thinking, they're not going to turn on The Rock. But then, even by the social media reaction, the dislikes, that's the world we live in now. Over 500,000 dislikes, is it, on the YouTube channel? That's big. Yeah. And then The Rock getting, I think
Rock's Instagram getting bombarded. I think the Raw reaction did kind of like, it was a bit milk toast. It was there, but it was a bit lukewarm.
I was just about to say that's getting a bit overhyped for me. Or the at the house shows and that, it was about 4 fellas going boo on a handheld calendar phone. I don't think it's as bad, but it could though, as you say, if they keep it on, especially WrestleMania's in Philadelphia. That crowd, remember 10 years ago the Royal Rumble when it was Roman, when The Rock's holding Roman's hand up, where he's getting booed out the building. This could have pockets, big pockets of the diehards who are at the front of WrestleMania booing this to fuck. And I don't want to see that. Like, from a product wise, I don't want to see that.
I think there was kind of like almost a hope that The Rock isn't what he was 4 or 5 years ago. And I come back to, well, what do you do the day after Mania? Like, what are the outcomes if you go ahead and you do this match? There's, as the Fightful report says, there is this, like, people saying, the push is for him to win the title.
JP, I'm done. No, I'm done then. I swear down. No, no. If The Rock beats Roman for the title, I'm done. Product, I am done. I'm done.
I mean, this is the thing with it. It makes no logical sense. The idea of him completing the match, or the match being up to some kind of decent standard, it's a mad idea to possibly put the title on it as well. It's just like, okay, putting CM Punk into the ring these days has risk to it, but this has like kind of real risk about how even that match would end up going. But then what do? You've ruined Cody to a certain extent. And the thing about him losing at Mania was, I think we all expected, and certainly me and you, Benno, expected him to kind of like it to be really bad. But in many ways, he kind of completely held up his end of the bargain, particularly like, the series with Brock Lesnar. And then he's had he's been involved without being kind of too much of necessarily like an overbearing presence, but at the same time kind of likable. That's a really difficult balancing act. Whereas we wait to get to the Rumble and we wait to get to kind of Mania season as well. But you just make him look bad. And that's this is the kind of decision that Vince McMahon would have made. Like, this was his logic for stuff as well. And fans have also been conditioned in many ways to dislike the idea of the part-timer. That's part of Roman Reigns' heel shtick, as we saw on the promo. Exactly. Is the idea of him being the part-timer and kind of embracing it as well. But you're always like tempting fate, because what is the crowd at WrestleMania? Like, I know we speak about hardcore. That's the hardcore WWE fan base. And they themselves have people that they want to see win. and that they're going to kind of react to it.
Philly
And the Rock, is Philly, and the Rock isn't one of them. Like, I think that's it. I think this, the idea of him being a special attraction, fine. I think, there's things they could do here as well. But moving Cody to effectively wrestle for the IC title against a guy who he beat 3 times, 3-0, and then got injured, seems like a ridiculous idea. And it's mad because we looked at the Mania build, sort of pre the Rumble, and we thought, okay, we can see what the 2 main event matches are. There's logical sense for both of them. They've done some degree of build to them, like in terms of Rollins, Punk, and Roman Cody. And obviously you lose Punk to injury, but changing the other one as well just seems like kind of mad. And even when I was watching the one bit of Raw that I saw with like a Drew McIntyre as well, I thought, my God, I'd sooner see him in there with Raw, because at least there's a degree of logic and it makes sense as to why that match would happen. And instead here, we're having what looks like it's something that's very, very ego-driven and being driven for all reasons that move away from all of the stuff that they've been building and building that goodwill with. So, yeah, it just maddening.
It's someone coming in who doesn't understand the product.
Yeah,
like there's as I said it last week. Like there's a bevy of podcasts out there you can listen to, and it'll probably drive you mad, Matt. They're saying things that will be like valid criticism 3 years ago, and like it's like there's enough to beat WWE with without bringing up stuff that like isn't a thing anymore. It happens all the time, and like I think Dwayne is even worse than that. I don't think he's watched the product in 10 years. I don't think he knows like what's going on. I don't think he knows necessarily that he's probably aware of the fact that they had plans for Cody, but doesn't understand the strength of feeling that came from last year, or the work, as JP just said there, that they've put into over the last year, just keeping Cody over, keeping Cody like against what that's where I've got to take a little bit of an L, Like I didn't think they could possibly do it.
That's testament to Cody though, more than anyone. But
they achieved the impossible. They kept them over a year to the point where they were literally at the finish line, Matt. They were about to get away with it. They were about to. I was about to
that does
win
make
and
sense.
also lose.
We disagree on the last year, but that makes why even I'm fuming this year so much because. He's kept himself going, which I said he would because he was that over last year. He's one of the only guys you could do it with that could stay that over. He's got the confidence, the fans behind him, and then that's perfect in that story of like finally now after all this, Roman will have stuff out of there. Jay's gone. Even in storyline, you'll have more. Probably Solo won't help him on the night, and he'll finally beat him like he said he would. That's great storytelling, though, and they're not going to do it. That's genuinely
good stories and bad stories as we always get into.
Yeah,
good story. This is a bad story.
Guy as well. Yeah, this. I don't know what after me. I apologize to most people on the Discord. Probably owe them an apology. I was drew in by like because I do as a. It's hard because as a Roman fan, I do want to see that Indy Rock is the end game for that story they've told for 4 years. But him just to get in there instead of Cody, it's not right. It's not right.
It's not lost on like on me. It's a gigantic match.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
Reigns and The Rock, and there's 20 ways to get to it. Just not this one. Like it's so. It's just not been thought through, or if it has been thought through, it's been thought through by the wrong people. It's such an own goal for such an obvious win. Like, I don't know what, does the answer end up being, 2-night Mania? Doesn't take long for most people to come up with that. You've got to convince Roman to work 2 nights.
Roman won't,
but it's kind of the only way you can do it, though. Like, or, Rock and Roman's going to have to wait for another time. Or you just come up with anything that isn't what they did on SmackDown and then what they did on Raw. Because the other thing about Raw was, like, they leaned into it absolutely, and the commentary were referencing it, and they were zooming in on those signs and the like. And while the crowd wasn't as loud as they would have been in Bryan Danielson era, there was an element of it there. As you said, Matt, it's only going to get stronger. But it killed any interest in anything else that was going on, because it was kind of like, oh, there's no resolution here. So that was a bit of a letdown in the opening segments. And then Cody went out there and basically wrestled in silence against Nakamura, because everyone's just sat there going like, what's actually happening? What's going to happen? People want answers. People want to understand the motivation of the Cody character to do what he did on Friday. It just makes no logical sense. It's just like, there's got to be a million better ways to get to the decision you want, and it's a completely unforced error for me.
Yeah, I think they fucked it. And do you know what was all? It was the ideas haven't been thought through, but then the delivery of it, which suggests like a completely rushed segment of just thinking we're just going to have like Cody come out, then cut that kind of promo with it, then gets weird towards the end, and then you have The Rock come in and completely take over and a stare down. And I was just watching it. I was going like, you fucked it here, lads. You've properly fucked it. You really have.
Got to pop on the night because it was a surprise appearance from The Rock. He's still The Rock. And this is the thing.
That's it.
He doesn't live on planet Earth. That's the problem. I mean, years on a row, like after the group, me and Matt had about 12 group chats together, but in every one of them, we're constantly making fun of fucking Dwayne and his Instagram posts. And stuff. He's not a human anymore. He's ascended to that place that the Scientologists go. Like, he's not like you've got like Dave Meltzer defending him, going like, oh, you know, Dwayne doesn't care if he's cheered or booed. He fucking does. He cares that Black Adam bombed. He cared that he fucked up the politics with the Fast and Furious franchise to the point where he had to go crawling back to that. Like, he is not in a good place right now in Hollywood. He's still fucking The Rock, and that's why he gets the reactions he gets, and that's why you should still do the match. But he's a Rock that's clawing to kind of pull back his relevancy, and you know, is unaware of the world around him. He is not The Rock from, you know, as we'll talk about on the podcast, the Hollywood Rock era, where he can lean into this and do. I've got no confidence he's going to lean into this well. I think he's going to be gotten to over it, as he appears to be from his Instagram posts, and I think he's going to struggle to deal with it. And I don't think, whether we can agree or disagree on how much of this is a work or whatever, the one thing that is consistent across these reports is that he and the WWE didn't see this coming. They maybe saw there being a fan, you know, getting behind Cody. They saw that coming, but they didn't see a backlash coming for The Rock. Like, what are they thinking? It was like, again, even with this 2024 WWE audience, like, how unlikable did he come across coming out in that moment to a world that he doesn't understand? Like, I don't think he's got the self-awareness back to pivot with this as well as a young Dwayne Johnson would. I don't think he's got that in his locker anymore, and I don't think he's as bulletproof, and I don't think he's as thick-skinned as he's gonna tell his friend Uncle Dave.
But that's what JP alluded to it earlier as well when he was describing it. The Rock thinks he's going to come in and he's going to take credit for the stuff that's already been done, the tickets sold, the merchandise, the everything else that comes with when they realize.
Do better sponsors.
Meltzer's leaning into that as well, Ben, isn't he? That like he is going to draw these bigger sponsors,
get attention,
more eyes. Yeah, of course.
But it's whether it's worth it. That's the thing. It's not a. Sorry to interrupt again, but it's not a one. But I had to eat some crow when The Rock took CM Punk's main event in 2011, and Punk couldn't ever let it go, and he did the first Rock versus Cena, and he was fuming out. He was more fuming about the Miz, wasn't he? But he was fuming about The Rock. Yeah. And I had to eat some crow. But at the end of the day, it's The Rock, and then Rock and Cena went out there and did like one of the biggest manias ever, and you just kind of have to go.
It was,
or if not the biggest mania ever, and you have to be like, hands up, fair enough. Even if I could agree, Rock and Roman is a slightly bigger match than Cody and Roman, maybe even more than slightly, just a bigger match. Is it worth all of this? Is it worth blowing up your two-year story? Is it worth the fan bad will? Is it worth the negative attention in this environment? It's not.
But that's it, though. You just hit the nail on the head when we're talking as it watching the wrestling on the telly, the story they've told. Andy said in the chat here, Andy Ryan, and I disagree with him slightly. He's saying there's no story with the Rock and Roman. There isn't the 2-year story that's been built up with Cody. I'm sure there's the background of the family, JP, the head of the table, and you've got to heat that up in 8 weeks. And it's got to be damn, JP. I've said this a lot of times. If The Rock comes in and starts arsing about with his shit comedy and with all his bollocks, I don't want to know it, JP. It's got to be a serious feud if that's going to be. But like Benno said there again, who knows if they're even going to do that? They both mightn't be there to WrestleMania. They might do this press conference on fucking Thursday. And they think, that's it, we don't need to do nothing. For me, they've got to fucking hammer it home and get the blood going, the seriousness going. Otherwise, what the fuck was all that worth even more? There's a lot of, obviously, unanswered questions. And that presser on Thursday, if they announce it there and then, it's pretty much done then, isn't it? Let's be honest. They're not going to go back on that if they announce it full on Thursday. God, we're all over the place. I'm sorry if I am with answering your question there, Ben, but there's just so much here. It fucking is, mate. It's baffling.
It's how do they recover here, JP? Like I say, there's the Dwayne question, as you've kind of got on our notes, is whether he can even physically do the match.
Yes.
He's probably just going to shatter it into grass. But I'm in agreement with Matty too, and as far as can he even do the build, because people don't remember John Cena ate him up, especially that second match. Like he wasn't.
And Roman's got better on the mic at stuff like that because of Cena. So Roman might even eat him alive, even.
Especially in this world where, like I say, he's made himself the heel in the situation. Like I don't know how he's going to recover from it. I think Roman is in an odd spot, especially if Matty's worst nightmare comes through and he drops the belt to Dwayne of all people. I just don't see that happening myself. But it would obviously be
politics,
a waste of what they've built. And Cody, like, how do you recover Cody? Like Cody already looks like the biggest fucking idiot. Like they're trying. But he's on Raw being like, oh, well, he's trying to act like they're trying to have the cake and eat it too. He's this, poorly done to man who's been put in this horrible position. No, on SmackDown, he was the one who made, in kayfabe, he made the call. He made the decision. That character looks weak as fuck right now. He's going to look even stupider, JP, if on Thursday at that presser, he goes, no, I actually want to, against all this, I want to wrestle Seth. To the point where I don't even think they can do it. I think 2 nights is my only answer here, JP. Like it's that's the only way out. I bet you that's what Triple H wants. I bet you. If you got him alone, he'd be like, yeah, that would probably be quietly the only way to get out of this. Compared to what the company wants. Maybe Dwayne doesn't want to do Saturday. Maybe Roman doesn't want to work 2 nights. Maybe it makes no sense to do them in, an order where Cody's already beat Roman and then Rock.
Dwayne won't do Saturday. His ego won't allow it, Benno. He will not allow
Maybe
that.
That's the blockage, but you've got to find a way because, there's 3 massive things at stake here, JP. I think it's, it's Cody and his position because he's somehow weathered this last year. It's Roman and his title run, and it's The Rock as well. And I don't even think he realizes it.
This is the thing with this is The Rock has a financial investment, an investment in lots of other ways in the success of TKO, and the WWE end of it is really the bit he's responsible for. So therefore he has to think in a post WrestleMania world, and the idea, and this is the problem with it, is that the logic of having him there is like he's not going to be around all of the time. It's who is going to be there on the week to week, who is going to be there in terms of and this is probably like the business metric that a lot of this affects, like the kind of the ticket sales and things like that, to kind of heat that up. They've managed to do that without hot-shotting stuff the guts of the last year, but actually having faith in their own kind of creative processes. All the issues that we have with them, they've worked from that perspective, and so you see him kind of like making these changes, and I'm completely bemused by it. And you can't even even the suggestion, I thought, well, how you do the 2 nights, or for some reason The Rock stands down. It makes Cody look like a coward, like he didn't want to wrestle Roman. He'd lost to him before and he didn't want to wrestle him again. If The Rock says, no, I'll be a referee instead, or something along those lines. And it doesn't help, doesn't save it. The 2 nights thing, I mean, that feels like where they should end up there, but it's just this unnecessary complication to all of this, which to a lot of stuff that was there very, very simply. And like you said as well, this could have been the Mania where they set the seeds for Rock, Roman, possibly a retirement match next year, or something along those lines. We've kind of got it's not even a title match, but just a big match in and of its own right. Something along those lines that you could have got to and had a long time to build, because I think that's the thing that you really that you want, don't you? You want him to to kind of recognize that it makes business sense at this stage, not to kind of for him to do the 2 nights, for him to accept that that's the way to go, and that the whole political struggle is kind of pointless. But like I say, all of this is just needless, unnecessary, self-inflicted damage on a company that's been and I have to say, to bring it back to the Vince stuff, it's completely rattled. And I think this is where they've allowed these kind of processes to take place, and it's just mental.
But I've said there, and I think it's been more because what you said, Ben, about the reports The Rock wants to win. Don't get me wrong, it's still bad that he's come in and took Cody's spot. But if he loses, if Roman beats The Rock, and we get out of there as Roman champ, and Cody does beat Roman at a later date, it's still bad, but it's not the worst, because you still get Cody winning and finishing the story. But if I can't stress this enough, if The Rock goes over and we Roman,
you'll be me last year, mate.
I'll tell you, be worse. What are they doing? Because I do feel sorry for Cody, as I say. If Roman beats Dwayne, gets it out the way, you build up to Roman and Cody at SummerSlam. I wouldn't personally drag it out another year. I think they do that at SummerSlam. That's okay. It's bad for Cody and it doesn't make sense, etc. But it's still, he gets to finish it and stuff like that. But God, if he doesn't and Rock wins, what are we doing here? What the hell are we doing?
What is the solution, Matt? Like for you, like why? Because that's the thing. It's easy. It's easy for us to say 2 nights, but it's to be honest. Like you're not gonna like this, but like if Roman's saying I'm not working 2 nights, you're saying fuck you are. Like you work for us.
But
like,
Rock's not going to do the Saturday, Ben. His ego will have to be the main event on Sunday.
That's more the barrier. That's more the barrier that have to be, because
that's not going to happen.
Just thinking to it logically, Cody can't beat Roman for the title on the Saturday, and then as much as I will bang the drum, Matty, and maybe now's the time to throw this in. Cody should have won last year. Roman Reigns and The Rock could be over the tribal chief. But now that pretty much everything Roman's done over the last year could be over the tribal chief. But at this point, he is the champion. And to have him lose the night before would take the luster out of, a second night where he's facing Dwayne. You almost have to do it that way around.
Well, we haven't said it yet.
Ego is going to have to fall here. And ego is going to have to fall, or they're just going to have to deal with the fallout of, fucking Cody.
No one said it that we've said for a long time. Like, it's not even been mentioned tonight. Triple threat, no? As someone alluded to, each 10. WrestleMania 10 was like 3 of them fighting over the title.
I argued.
WrestleMania 20, WrestleMania 30 was Bryan. Maybe they've got that in the mind. They could do it. I'm saying that'd be a bit of a cop-out, but it saves some sort.
Triple threats are just... I feel like maybe JP feels the same way like I do about trios matches. Like I was the second year when it was Rock and John Cena. I would have put Punk in for the 3-way because at that point I wouldn't think it would have affected the buy rate. That was my argument at the time. You could have had it's actually a similar problem. You could have had a current guy just get that shine of, even if he took the fucking fall, being in there in the Mania main event with those two. I fought for that then. Maybe I should use the same argument now, but I just don't see it. Yeah, it just doesn't. It's not as attractive as either of the singles matches. I don't think, and it really that would be a real kind of like the. They're having to compromise. I don't think that's a good compromise.
Why the bother of winning the Royal Rumble if just to end up in a triple threat match?
That's the power play, though, JP. That's
remember the Rumble?
I've turned everything I said on Discord because I read about that power play like about yesterday. I think that come out. So I changed everything due to that because I was like, whoa, this is like a bit deeper politically than we think. So
easier on Dwayne though. As JP said, genuinely like less bumps for Dwayne. The best. He needs the honky tonk man. He can't.
Did you read them reports, Benno, that he's going to do a proper full-on WrestleMania 30-minute match? That's what he's going to do. He said on. This
is my prediction. This match. This is Gabe Stevenson. I will bet you, if that's true, he gets injured before the match. Doesn't even take place. All this argument is pointless because Dwayne hurts himself training for it. Like genuinely, like I could for me, that's the most likely scenario. That's what I'm. That's me. Maybe it's an outside bet rather than a likely scenario. But that's what I put my money on. I'd sneak a little tenner on that. Dwayne doesn't make it that far. I'd go with that.
JP, it's crazy, mate.
Well, when was his last match? We're not going to include Eric Rowan.
No, it's Cena, WrestleMania 29. But this is what I'm saying, JP. He got this
11 years ago.
Yeah, and he beat Cena
13 years ago. Why we But
he beat Cena, didn't he? And obviously he done the favours the year after when he come back. But do you see, as Benno said, he's that deluded, his ego. I believe now that he's going to win because is he going to come back after all this time? I'm the saviour of the WWE selling this and lose. It's not going to happen, is it? He's gonna win. It's fucking awful. It's fucking horrible.
I was gonna say he's not in the physical condition. He might look the part. Look very like.
As someone said though, JP,
hasn't got the cardio.
20 minutes with Roman though, isn't he?
No,
so
not remotely ready for that kind of a match. And
my bad.
We're talking, a minimal amount of. So you're expecting there to be an injury, and that's a fucking disaster. And that will get them all manner of publicity, but it'll just make them seem like a company that's like fucking up, and it will add to the blemishes on the Dwayne The Rock Johnson brand as well. if it doesn't go as well, Andy looks blown up. But you look at the size of him. I don't have any faith in any aspect of the actual him wrestling side of it, because it would have to be a ton of shortcuts anyway. But like I say, it negates so much of the story stuff, which has been for the very first time in near like 20 odd years that they've actually logically thought about stuff for a while and had their cast of characters. And the kind of part-timers we've been talking about in recent years have been Logan Bloody Paul, which we've been absolutely fine with, and takes a loss and is wrestling in like the US title scene. So you're like, yeah, that's absolutely fine. And makes had that one match with Roman at Saudi and stuff like that. But yeah, dare I say it, and this sounds like a shocking phrase, The Rock is no Logan Paul. I don't think he's ready, which I feel like I'm a mentalist for saying that out loud, but that's kind of where we are.
JP.
Like, fucking hell.
Logan Paul, I'll do that instead. That's a big match. They got an ongoing feud, haven't they? He was joining in the We Want Cody stuff on Twitter. Fuck. Anything more on it, lads? Any angle of it we haven't covered, Matt?
No, the pressure, isn't it? That I've alluded to that phase. I think we should know more then Thursday. I think that'll be the final. If they don't do an angle at that, I've seen people putting in today, it's the Hogan, Sid Justice, Ric Flair, Macho Man, WrestleMania 8 press conference where they could change it all because of the backlash.
There's a lot of history things here.
Yeah,
Yoko and Hogan. Hogan and Brett with Hogan.
Cody is Lex Luger.
Pointed the ring for Hogan to go in. It got a pop on the night, Matt, so it's fine. Was what I was going to argue with you tonight, but turns out we're on the same page. I thought, remember Elimination Chamber? Isn't that supposed to be for a title shot? What are they going to do with that? Like, it's the least of the problems right now, but like, I guess, I suppose so. It's one of the in one fell swoop. I should probably just enjoy it because like. Considering everything we know about this company this last week or so, they've killed the goodwill of the hardcore fans. They've stepped the locker room. They've fucked up the stories. They've fucked up Triple H's booking all a few weeks before WrestleMania, and now they're scrambling to fix it. And I don't even think they know what they're going to do on Thursday. Fuck me. Anything else to add, JP, from your end? Watch out for that Brian Goetz. That will be what we should be wary of. Edge and will be back in WWE before you know it.
Fucking it, yeah, it will be. We'll be back into because I think people somehow make the assumption, he was the good writer in WWE. You go, no, that was Chris Kresge. He was the one who appeared to be like the kind of happy medium of all of these writers, and he's dead. So like it's with Brian Gewirtz, I haven't watched any of Young Rock, and that's where he's been on that, but I don't. That's predominantly why, and it looked like I'd just be angry about every single wrestling bit that I would have seen on that. So yeah. It's funny though, I won't lie. There is a part of me that kind of laughs at them when they're in this kind of mode, because obviously it comes from the place of, title back with all the other crises going on in the company as well, and how they kind of deal with it. But yeah, we'll have a lot more information of this obviously on the weekend show, because we'll have what happens at the Thursday press conference. So if you go to the Patreon, you'll be able to listen to our thoughts on that then.
Definitely. Well, on that note, before we let you go, Matt, and it's turned into a thing. This is WrestleMania season. WWE's in the headlines, fucking every week at the minute, for good and for very, very bad. But yeah, before we let you go, you did have some thoughts on the big WWE show over the weekend. Obviously, that we should be talking about.
I heard you on the weekend show, Benno, saying
NXT
you're doubting me fandom to NXT. I'm not happy about that.
Well, before we get into NXT Vengeance, then, mate, do you want to just catch us up on what's been going on the TV for the last 18 weeks since you turned up on here with your NXT t-shirts on, your NXT flag and your NXT hat? You've been enjoying it. It's been good, this build to Vengeance Day. Told some good stories.
Me and JP are the real ones. We've been solely interested, JP, in this mellow Trick Williams, who's going to turn on who for months now. And that's been dominating NXT, Benno. That's been the real storyline in wrestling, in the product. That's what it's been. And finally, it's come to an edge, JP, and it's a sad day for poor Trick, isn't it?
Well, this is the thing. I think you've somehow put me in here as like a big NXT fan for this, whereas actually how I end up feeling about NXT for the most part is that, and this is the common kind of line with it, is actually, again, for their fans, in terms of fan service, it delivers what they want, because you look at this crowd and you look at the reactions and everything else around them, they kind of get that. And I catch up on these shows, and when I watch them, what I end up seeing is, for the most part, a like say competent booking, because we get to see the video promo packages that kind of lead to it as much as anything else. But it genuinely feels like this is the kind of, this is a generation of wrestlers who we are going to see on the main roster at various stages. Like, they are being kind of highly thought of. We saw a lot of that at the Rumble, where like the spots that were taken by the nostalgia acts were very much taken by NXT acts. And for this as well, like, it all obviously hinges on very much on, say, Trick and Mello. Yeah. And I have to say, like, for the most part, like, and we'll go straight to the main event, I think, as much as anything else for this, because you can talk about the opener in terms of the Dusty Cup final with Trick and Mello versus Baron Corbin and Bron Breakker, but you go into the main event and Trick Williams here felt like a star. Like, misgivings over his work notwithstanding, like, he is very, very over to this crowd, to the degree much more so than everybody else there.
Yeah, 100%, JP. But even the opener, the Dusty Clack, played into the story of the night, where Mello took the bullet for Trick, thinking he was helping him out, and everyone thought, he's going to be behind him in the main event, of course. And even the backstage in the trainer's room, guys who've watched wrestling for 100 years between us, isn't it? Now, our fandom's like, we knew it was coming when Mello was like, I'm there by your side and stuff. We knew it was coming. It's wrestling 101. But as you say, JP, the fans, like, he's been getting these reactions a lot more than anyone. And even when he ran down on SmackDown the other week, the place went crazy for Trick, and he's very over. And I'd say his work, but JP, I think he hung well with Ilya, who is he's a great worker, isn't he? I thought he was there for everything, though. I thought he held up his end of the bargain in this main event. And also at the beginning, where he busted Ilya, was that a receipt, that clothesline, JP, where he busted them back open? That was an old school receipt. That was good. That was good to see. But no, it was hard hitting. It got me. The last 5 minutes of this match to 7 minutes were incredible, because I thought after 2 forearms it was over. After Mello had gone into him by mistake and given him the chop block, I thought the 2 forearms, that was it. And when he kicked out, JP, the fans, they all thought, we're going to get a new champion here. It's his finisher. Ilya kicked out, and it's just a great back and forth. And even the finish, where they were both running at each other, but Ilya had diving headbutt. Just thought it was so well done. And then at the end, I know it was done to death now, the old graphic comes off at the bottom, and we're going off here. And then
it was probably the worst example of that, I thought.
We knew it was coming. That's what I mean. It passed its sell by date, but he got some old school heat Mello for that, and it was a great. And JP, dare I say it, one of the bigger matches I'm looking forward to, Mania weekend, because that's going to be the main event of the next one, isn't it? Surely. So honestly, great bit of business all around. Absolutely loved it. Great payoff to the storyline, and we'll get a big match out of it. And what wrestling's all about, mate.
Yeah, and I think. Sorry, you go, Benno.
Oh, Ben, I loved it. Genuinely, I loved it so much. Loved it.
I just want to talk about AEW now, lads. I feel dirty, but it was it was a pretty good match. I thought I don't think the angle was well executed. I think it was one of the weaker versions of that. It got over in the building. I don't think they timed
it well then.
The end, I think. Well, yeah, the Rock coming out got popped, didn't it? Hogan beating Yokozuna got a pop too.
That got a pop that they've been building for 6 months, Benno. So it's sad.
No, it's been well built, and I think the two of them have got potential. Main roster, how high that potential is, we'll see. But as far as a few goes, it's not exactly Rock on My World, Sean and Marty style. But maybe it's an investment in NXT problem.
Genuinely is.
Go back though. Ilya's great, and that's probably the spot for Ilya. I dread to think if he ever made it to main roster, and he'd probably get Tyler baited within a couple of weeks. But he works well as that temple champion, doesn't he? And genuinely, I did like the match, and I think it's we'll see what happens with the feud itself.
He's been a lot better champion there than I would have expected at all, and I think it was like the clear highlight of the show. I mean, I'd go 4.25 for it, because I really enjoyed it as well, and particularly because of having Trick Williams wrestle earlier on. It was under 18 minutes, which was quite refreshing for this. So he's kind of felt like a bit of an all-action 18 minutes, but that's Ilya Dragunov, and that's him kind of like stylistically. And the fact they were both busted up early doors, I think, added something to it where, for me, at times watching NXT, is it feels very sanitized, and it deliberately is. And I think,
that are JP on there.
There is.
What you described to a T is that, but I thought that main event wasn't for once, you know, because even some of Ilya's matches can do that. This was so old school NXT for me. This was old school.
That's the thing. It happened in the surroundings of like the most off-putting product in wrestling for me. I don't understand how there's it's always the people with bad taste as well. Like the media people out there who just fucking love NXT. And you see some of those backstage segments and you see, you know, Ava White, the Rock's daughter, and how fucking bad she is.
She's terrible.
Talking bits. Even the talking bit with these, like at the build to the match, it was like, oh, it wasn't an advert for the actual shows themselves. But yeah, I do think there is absolutely something there with Trick Williams. I love his offense. I love that running knee thing he does. He's just a little bit different in ring, a little bit rough around the edges.
Yeah,
but I think
100%.
that's something about that works really. But yeah, by far and away the highlight of the stuff that I saw, even liberally skipping through.
But Ben, we've been going back a long time with this storyline when they were in the barbershop, JP, and just shooting the breeze, you know, Trick and Mello.
Yeah.
Honestly, I'm finally glad it's paid off, and they're gonna get a big match out of it.
Yeah, and they've done it, and it's going to get the big spot around kind of Mania weekend as well. I mean, I suppose like jumping around the card, when like in terms of, I didn't like the finish to the ending, just simply because I watched it back, and maybe it's just me, but it was like Mello takes the spear, but I don't think he shoves Trick Williams. Trick Williams just sort of dives and rolls out of the ring as he gets speared, but without any contact, as if he was speared by the Invisible Man and ended up out of the ring, this is the thing about Trick Williams as well. Like there's a couple of times he goes like for a certain type of cutter and it's very, very messy. But that's kind of him.
They're like neck breakers.
That's him. Yeah. Oh God, they love a neck breaker in the Performance Center, don't they? Christ above. They never stop that as well. But yeah, it is a kind of like strange environment, but can also say for that main event, dare I say it as well, a Bron Breakker, Baron Corbin tag team on the main roster may not be the worst possible direction in the world. And I'm almost annoyed with myself having saying that as well. But there's something there, because it was a bit of a balmy match, like that opener as well. And they were like kind of like doing some shit. It felt like incredibly sloppy in places, and it was all like, just okay, how do we get to the end bit? That's really where we were with that as kind of like an opener. But them as a tag team, because again, when it comes to going up to main roster, I don't have faith of what they'll do with, say, a Bron Breakker, which is, you know, they'll never do what I want them to do, which is change his fucking surname to his actual surname and actually kind of like have him directly acknowledge who his uncle and his dad is. But instead, like, if you put him in there with a Corbin as well, weirdly in a Steiner Brothers style situation, you can have him there and kind of turn on him, and maybe that'll be the way to go, because like we've seen him in terms of his run as like a singles champ, he's fucking limited in the ring. Like it doesn't go well a lot of the time.
Did you see him nearly decapitate himself when he ran into the ropes as well? That was a rough looking spot, JP. He just got so much like energy and ferocity. It was he could have done some serious damage on that. Like, so I'm glad he's okay off that.
Yeah. I think some of the wrestlers on here, and this might be a general thing, they get really fucking hyped up for these shows, and they just go and just throw a load of shit at a wall, which as a viewer can be kind of overwhelming. And then like it ends, and then we have these like interminable video packages that seem to last sort of 10 to 15 minutes. It's like, all right, I get it. This is the metaphor. I don't need to see any more. Got like 10 fucking minutes on this now. But
you read my mind. Yeah. Anything else, Matt? On NXT,
no, I'm just saying, it's not me. I understand what you're saying though, Benno. It's a proper niche wrestling audience, I'd say. It's not your... You know, I joke, we joke. It's not your IWC, your wrestler company at all. But I think there is a charm underneath it, Benno. No, I think there's a charm to it.
Basically what you're saying.
I used to sound like JP. I compare it to like a Hollyoaks though, Benno. Because every time I used to put Hollyoaks on, there was like 10 new cast members. Every time I put NXT telly on, there's another 20 wrestlers just appearing out of nowhere. So you know, you're just about getting used to the 10 that they're presenting, and then another 20 come on, and you've got to get your head around them and get into them. So I can get that. But I do think there's a bit of charm to it, and I will be following it going forward, especially the pay-per-views.
There we go.
So there we go.
Anything else to do then before we let you go, Matt? So unless you want to stay for Collision chat, mate. Banging of a show this week.
Just let me know the attendance. If it got over 2,000, I'll give them a thumbs up. Just let me know the attendance, please. Because Dynamite was under 2,000 as well, wasn't it? So, you know, just that's all I want to know.
Love you.
You know.
It was a good show. I enjoyed it.
I heard it was a good show, and I heard I think it was better than Dynamite winning it. So the reports I always read, it was a better show, and that has been for a couple of weeks now than Dynamite, which is...
See Mercedes turning up this week?
Well, I hope so, because I'm sick of seeing when she's going to do... Apparently she's filmed content, hasn't she, for the debut? So let's get it. Yeah. Let's just get it on TV.
We're getting a Boston days this
week.
But
the women, no, as I said last time I was on, Deonna Purrazzo, very intrigued to see her against Toni Storm, and as long as they go all the way with me man Swerve as for the title. I did listen to the weekend show, and I'm not up to date in the product. Is it not going to be a draw on Dynamite, and they're going to do a freeway at the pay-per-view? So they can get to maybe Swerve winning the belt and then Hangman beating him, or do the way around where they don't have to take the fall against each other. That's my booking for that anyway.
That might be a situation where the three-way is not the end of the world. But yeah, we'll get into all that. We'll have you caught up soon, Matt. We'll you spare you for the we've got some New Japan talk to come, and some Rev Pro as well. So we'll let you get off to do your homework, mate. But yeah, people want more of Matty, and catch him on the Spotlight pre-shows, affectionately known as the Matty Edwards pre-show. Over my dead body, but anyway, it's still.
JP, get that Oz music, mate, on the edit, please. That's all they ask. Okay. Get that Oz for you, and all also, dealer's choice. I'm going to hit Connor up as soon as I log off here. So look forward to everyone's thoughts on that when it comes. So, boys, have a good rest of the show, and I will speak to you soon.
Cheers, mate.
Ta-ra. Right, on that note, I've been excited actually, JP, to talk some AEW as. Despite all the news being dominated by WWE, I thought AEW far and away had the best show of the week. I don't think I've ever said to you, JP, that I'm really excited to talk about Collision. We sat there on Saturday night, me and Steph put it on, and we're like, I suppose we're up. We should put Collision on. It's a part of my Saturday night's Collision. It's like it's a Sunday morning catch-up job, and I think Collision veers between. There's like a line. It's like at one end of the line, it's completely skippable. At the other end of the line, it's like match good. And it's like, it's usually somewhere within that line or, content good. But it's always still some degree of skippable and always some degree of good. It's just, do you really miss anything when it comes around to Dynamite? And even with this week's show, I think, there's an argument to be made. If you didn't see Collision, you can still watch Dynamite happily this week. I'm sure they'll catch up on the comings and goings. But if this is what Collision's going to be, and to be fair, it's not just a this week thing. It's a past few weeks thing, I would say, sneakily on the side. It's been a really fun little wrestling show. It's probably damn overplayed praise. Like, it feels a bit like WCW Saturday Night or something like that, where you get a couple of work rate matches out of nowhere that you didn't expect, but then it's kind of blended with maybe even the couple of weeks that Thunder was good, blended with maybe back in the day when Raw and SmackDown were 1 and 2. It's still very much the B show, but quality wise, whether it's because Tony has got less pressure on him, it's not Dynamite, so there are less significant happens, which again is the reason why it's not as newsworthy. It really was a really fun show. You give me a wrestling TV show, JP, with Eddie Kingston, Brian Keith on it, into Brian Danielson and Hetcher Zero. I think that's how you pronounce it. I learned that on the weekend. Thank you, JP. Thank you, patrons. You also give me a little bit of Christian and the patriarchy. Give me a Mark Briscoe cutting speaking of Nitro or Thunder, a very Nitro Thunder in the ring with Tony Schiavone. And then you talk Swerve as well, as Matty just alluded to there, having a killer promo on the show. It felt like it had every element of what I actually like about AEW. It was a Hangman Page match away from almost being my vision of AEW. I really enjoyed this week, and I'm hoping you're with me, JP, for Collision. I think I'm a Collider again.
I think I am. I think when I put the notes up, which Patreon listeners, Patreon subscribers can see, I've written a banger of a Collision, and I watched this on Monday, So I was late to the party with this one. I'd kind of lower expectations, which I think helps with this show. But like you say, and it's strange because on paper, when we spoke about it on the weekend show, it was 2 matches. I was like, that's the Brian Keith show again, is it? Okay, all right, we've got him on it.
I just saw the Discord. Everyone was going mad when he got his contract. Like, JP's not going to be happy. JP's got a grudge. Like, you've got this grudge against this poor man earning money. You want to take food off his table. That's what you know. I know your type.
I don't. I think there's other wrestling companies who could probably use him in a much more substantial way as a fresher face on like the television wrestling.
You with your nuance. We don't do nuance.
I don't. Yeah, I don't. I have nothing against Brian Keith, and I say, and he is, and for this match, he was given a hell of a lot as well. So, like, that was the thing that massively helped with this. Is on paper though, you look at it, and it's you're not particularly impressed by a lot of the matches on here compared to like, let's say Dynamite, which when we spoke about Dynamite last week, incredibly forgettable, like with no matches that stood out. And Collision could easily end up being that type of show, but it isn't, because I think it's the pace, and you mentioned it there. It was going straight from like a cracking opener into like a completely different type of Bryan Danielson match. One that I was just like, it's getting his CMLL on here at this point. But it was just like an apology from Bryan Danielson for kind of like 10 minutes. Like, how the fuck do I escape out of what this guy is doing? And it was a hell of a lot of fun for that. And it, I'm like going through the matches on here. There's 5 matches within a 2-hour show. And like you mentioned, 2 kind of killer promos. And I was there every step of the way. And even something like Red Velveteen versus Vert Vixen, it's 2 minutes long, and it serves a purpose, at least for trying to build up a character. But it was like, I think it was partly as well that those 2 opening matches had the crowd going with them. So even it's a small crowd, as Matty likes to point out as well, it's a crowd.
It looked indie. I'll say that now. He's gone. It did look indie. Yeah. Like, the venue looked indie. Didn't matter in the end because it was a good indie show, but like, it felt a little.
That was it. Like, and I think the crowd sounded fucking great in there, and they're getting some things right in there in terms of the promo segments. There wasn't loads of them of just pointless kind of promos. There was like 2 where it's guys out in the ring, and you think, there's reasons for this as well. The job they're doing with Daniel Garcia, which is a long-term kind of play, but in terms of just taking him away from Dynamite, taking him out of the whole Chris Jericho universe, just plonking him in with FTR, as simple as the thing as it is, you go, that kind of works. I don't know what the Matt Menard play is. Matt Menard should just become a commentator, frankly, really, at this stage. I'll be kind of all right with that at this point as well. But you think to yourself,
build into a match? I don't know. I don't get it.
I don't get how he kind of fits into it as well. But you're getting Daniel Garcia Christian, I imagine, at the pay-per-view as well. You go, I'm completely fine with that. That's a direction that they should be going in there as well at the same time. But everything in it for the 2 hours, it just flowed. And I say this, there's a lot of times where I watch Collision and I'm not really looking forward to it. And then afterwards I go, why wasn't I looking forward to that? That was a really fun show. And it doesn't have the issues that I have around, say, Dynamite, where there's things that happen on Dynamite that really bother me. And I'd say Swerve's promo, that felt like a sort of main event star promo to me as well. Just the way that he delivered it. And
we've gone from, I want to pick up on a couple of other matches as well, because I really love this show. I've got things to say about Everett on the show. Even fucking Serena Deeb and Queen Amanita on the quiet, they might be my 2 favorite women in this division. I really enjoyed that too. But to stick with Swerve for now, Swerve is someone, it's so funny that, like I said this on the Discord, we've gone from every time he cuts a promo like this or appears being like, you know what? I've got this really interesting take here. I think Swerve might have it as a main eventer, Like, how many weeks did we say that? Now it's just a given. He is a main eventer in AEW. It's pretty much mission accomplished at this point. We need to dot those I's and cross those T's, and he should get that title this year, as he alluded to in that promo. But like, it was just effortless this week. It was just him out there, like, name checking Ron Simmons, name checking Kofi Kingston, and just, it was a really just like kind of like almost by the numbers, but like main event promo. It was, like I say, Tony Schiavone standing on the stage with Ric Flair or fucking DDP or Lex Luger or whichever one of the baby faces he'd bring out, or sometimes heels. It was fucking just superb. Like that is a made man, right? They're standing in AEW, and that's what it gave the show as well, because we had all the great in-ring stuff. This gave it a little bit of flavor and a little bit of character and a little bit of forward momentum towards Dynamite. Again, it's an episode you could skip if you're purely looking at the capital letter stories, but that goes to your point to pick up about the job they've done with Daniel Garcia. Collision has been the Daniel Garcia rehab show. Like, they have get him out of the pants, drop the dancing, and I think we're done. I think that job is nearing completion as far as setting him up. Like, didn't mention it. Like, how is chemistry with Nick Wayne as well? Like, that was something that could be a match that like coming up. Like, again, I've got misgivings about Nick Wayne being in this position right now. I feel like he works less in AEW than he ever did on the indies. But anyway, he's in there learning from Christian, and it's like a nice little moment we had in the match there. There's a feel-good aspect that comes to Daniel Garcia's reboot, and giving him something to do being with FTR. It's giving FTR something to do. We don't love the trios belts traditionally on this show, but they seem to be the ranked, aren't they, for that? So they're leaning in that direction with that, and it was just fun watching them just have a almost borderline throwaway match with Christian, Nick Wayne, and Killswitch, and just it be that fun. Like, yeah, that was your character development if you needed any on the show. But to say match wise, like, yeah, I'm with you on all of it. Like I say, Danielson, Hechicero, Gareth is a week or two behind. He just got to the Yuji Nagata match, and he said it reinvigorated his love for wrestling. This is going to do that twice that much. Like you said before, like just the counters, the ref kind of fucked the finish a little bit. I don't know why he was still counting. I hate that WWE count it like it's a shoot bullshit. Like, because even if you did that, the shoulders are up. What are you doing? Just stop counting and let the wrestlers tell you what the actual finish is, mate. It was one of them where it looked like he literally lifted his hand up, ready to ring the bell, and he stopped himself. Thank God he did, because it would have killed the match. Instead, it just looked a little bit rough as a finish, which I can kind of take. Adds a little bit of realism. But like the chemistry of them two, maybe we want to see that again. Like, that's I just hear obviously when we're struggling to pronounce the names, someone who's massively on my radar. But absolutely a dream for Danielson to work, and there's no harm in putting him in a match like that on Collision. And I get the story. You get him, as somebody said in the chat before, I kind of said there, bumping into Eddie on the ramp, that's a continuous bit they're doing. They're still building towards, I'm not sure that's a program I would have gone to again, but, I'm sure I'll enjoy it when it comes. Still building towards that. It's just so many little bits of business we've done so well on this show.
Yeah, it is. I like, who was losing stuff on this show? I think even the Serena D kind of coming back basically as a babyface, because that's what she is. But she's just a fucking, like, a hard wrestler. I just go, yeah, it's not rocket science here. Yeah.
Which is not, it's not a given, actually, but yeah, it's great. It's good, isn't it? The only negative there's Queen Amanita. Like, she's been, I know we joke about the Brian Keith factor, and genuinely, like, I think it was a nice moment of getting the contract, and Eddie Kingston put it over, and they had a great match. Like, again, it felt, it did feel like a match that you might see on a Beyond or something like that, but in a positive way, I would say.
Yeah.
But nice moment for him. She was when he first came in, she was the other conversation along that strand, JP, where it was like, oh, it's another person they're bringing in. She's been a constant on the shows the last 2 months or so. Constantly losing was the negative I was going to get to. That's the only thing.
Yeah.
But she is so solid. She's not going to be the star of the division, but when you talk depth, it's like squad depth and footy in it. When you talk depth, that extra midfielder you could do with it, you bring on, that you sign in the January transfer window and you use for the rest of the season. That's what she's been these last week. She's been nothing but solid. And if anything, she's probably got a few more wins to just kind of move into the middle of the pack rather than the bottom of the pack. That's the only negative. But she's been a real highlight of the show. Is just quietly, just doing the job, literally.
And a fresh face, of which a lot of the times we don't have these. And I think that's the thing that AEW, and at times we forget that. That was always part of the appeal of, who is this person? I don't really know anything about them. And we say this as kind of like as smart fans. And you go, oh, okay. What we want to see is some fresh faces and people being good. Youth team players, effectively, is what Queen Aminata feels like. And therefore, you're going to give them a bit more leeway. And she's kind of delivered. She has. She's not quite Bukayo Saka. Like, we're not talking about prodigies and whatnot coming in there, but she is very much. Oh, I would say that Smith Rowe sort of pre-injuries, because at this point, like, I know she could end up on Ring of Honor like him being sold to Aston Villa. That would be the analogy you would kind of go.
Oh, is he gone now? I didn't realise he was gone.
I don't know. Like, that's always been the rumour as well, for stupid 25 million, which is just rubbish. If Cole Palmer's going for 50, we can get fucking 50 for him. Anyway, I completely digress from it. The thing about it is that like, putting her in there with a Serena Deeb, for example, I think it just... She's had like a kind of a good range of opponents, and she's in there at least against people who are on the come up. And here, at least it was like she was competitive. I know you say about her losing, and she does need to win some matches. Quite where that happens, I don't know. Like, really, if anything, I know this may sound like kind of pushing her down. She should be on Rampage a bit, picking up like the odd win. Like, that would be really where we should be. We see a promo out of her.
Keep it in the middle of the pack, you know what I mean? Like, someone's got to lose. I'm not saying that, and she's done that job well, but I think she's shown she could be a little bit further up in the back and order.
Yeah, and I think they're going to try a lot of stuff with that women's division. Like we spoke earlier on about Mercedes Mone already filming kind of segments as well, and you know, is this the big announcement we're going to talk about on Dynamite, which feels like a phrase we've said many, many times, and we're kind of waiting to see happen, but. You know, you'd like to think that would be the case. But, you know, they need to try out a whole range of people to kind of see what sticks. Because as we see, it's like there's not as much set in stone in the women's division, certainly not in AEW. We've got a comedy character as the lead, you know, at this stage. And really, there is like a chance for somebody to just kind of break through. Because that's really, Toni Storm was pretty much floundering, wasn't she? And then this character happens. And before you know it, she's champion. And she feels like the obvious choice for champion. My misgivings with the character notwithstanding, she is kind of there because she's the person who stands out at the minute in a company that doesn't have a Britt Baker. Where Britt Baker kind of had that role, if we're being honest as well. So she stood out in the women's division because it was never booked particularly well.
Over, I'll take it off TV. What happened there? We'll find out one day. Yeah, Camille's apparently that's the other. Like, it kind of came through the wide before we hit record. Apparently, she's coming in, rather than WWE. She could be a fun heater for somebody. She could. They've definitely quietly been, you know, trying to at least build something, or at least give it like pride of place on the shows, as shown by Collision having the you know, as the statisticians love to say, 2 matches, or you know, they count the minutes of the women's division. I'd rather quality over quantity myself, but it was good quality this week on Collision, and I guess we'll see what happens with Dynamite. We should talk. I suppose you've alluded to it there. We expect there to be some kind of it's the Tony Khan has a big announcement, which I think they're going to go full, you know, CM Punk, and it'll just be Boston on this date. That's when we expect it. The rumor mill says sooner rather than later, so that's on there. We can talk a bit more about that. Toni Storm versus Red Velvet is on the show as we continue to build towards Tony and Deanna, which is a really solid match for the pay-per-view coming up. Speaking of that, on top of that, we got Blackpool Combat Club, Moxley, Claudio, and Danielson against Mascara Dorada, Hechicero, and Volador Jr. So building off Collisions. There we go. Got a little bit of a follow-on from the standoff that we got on Collision. They did have a lot of ballyhoo for Claudio's entrance. It felt a bit more, bit bigger than was needed. I think he just could have came out. Didn't need all the music and pyro and whatever. But anyway, they did that. Swerve Adam Page obviously is the big one on the show. We talk more about that. Jericho Takeshita is on this show as well. I hadn't realized that was on there until I read that. And Ricky Starks and Big Bill versus Sting and Darby Allin. That's a big time Dynamite. Like that. Yeah, probably tells you this big announcement is coming. JP, presumably Swerve and Page is on last, but it's a couple of matches there. There could be a Dynamite main event on a different week.
Yep, exactly. Like we compared to last week's, which was really anonymous. This one has a lot for it and a lot of the build. So again, it's going to be interesting. It's not a reset, but it feels like the final push for Revolution to kind of flesh out a lot of other things as well. And I'm really looking forward to it as much as anything else. If I could throw in the shout here, like because this CMLL influence into the mix, he really should look at running a show in Arena Mexico, just for the sake of kind of varying it up. If they wanted to go to a completely different place and run a special episode of Dynamite, they could do a lot worse than going there, I think, for a week. But yeah, I mean, I think we could have like I mean, there's big implications in terms of the tag division. We were saying about this on the weekend show. We were kind of possibly expecting that Sting and Darby Allin will end up winning that.
They are. This might age like milk. Because people, in a couple of days, if people listen to this on Thursday, I'm going to look really stupid. I do think Sting and Darby are winning the belts and they're pivoting them to the Bucks match. And that might seem like an odd booking decision, but Ricky Starks and Big Bill have, as well as they've done with the team, outstayed the welcome also as a team.
Yeah, they have.
They both could be doing other stuff, couldn't they? I don't think that's out of their own possibility, genuinely.
Yeah, I really, that's what I expect there. I also expect Adam Page to beat Swerve Strickland because I suppose, it would be the direction I would go to. Would be I want Page to beat Joe. Joe as the transitional champion, absolutely fine. To just transitioning it into this feud. Because then after that, Swerve Strickland goes, no, hang on a minute, I beat you twice, you've beaten me once. I deserve like a big title match, a double or nothing. And you build to that as your pay-per-view main event, and you could do it in a cage. You could do it with some kind, you can even get to the kind of stip side of it if you want to do that, but certainly the title adds the stakes to it. And that's where I would do it, because in some ways I want Swerve Strickland beating Adam Page for the title as a kind of like, I don't know. I like the idea of that as opposed to Adam Page taking the title from Swerve Strickland. I don't know. It's intriguing either way. And like you're saying about it's not the idea of Swerve not being a main eventer. We spoke about this earlier on when talking about the Mania stuff. I hate the idea of three ways as main events. They don't have the stakes of that.
But I think maybe with this one, though, where I'd defend it, where it might be an exception, is we're trying to make Swerve a main eventer. We're trying to make Hangman back to being the main eventer he always should have been. You can kind of achieve both aims if you kind of put them both in the match.
Yeah.
And if Sting's going to sell, again, I've thought myself into this, the Sting match is selling the pay-per-view anyway. Like, do you desperately need a singles match? And it is Joe as solid a hand as he is as champion. He's a B+, A- champion. I feel horrible saying that because he's been fucking great, but he's not, he's not the world champion type. He does feel like he's at that certain level. I don't think a singles match with him is that gigantic, so maybe a three-way works. I should again caveat, I love all of Joe's work. He's been great. Loving him in the role, the seriousness he's bringing to the title, all of those things. But, it is Samoa Joe at this grand old age. Yeah, I don't think I'd hate it. But you're right, though. Any direction is good. How exciting is that to be like, you know what? Whoever it is, it's going to be good, innit?
Yeah.
It's going to be a good bit of business. And it's, we talked a little bit about the rankings of the weekend show. The rankings mean something because, yes, you can work them. Yes, they're a bit broader than they were historically. But, yeah, Swerve and Page are at the top of them. So they're the top guys and they're going for the belt. Like, it's all a fucking work. People forget that. It's a fucking work anyway. Like, work it, work it in a way that makes, you just want the work to make sense. People lose track of that, I think, a little bit, JP, and expect these rankings to be a shoot. They don't work as a shoot. They just work as a guide and something like the matches you can work. You just got to put a bit of effort into working them. And there's things we'll probably, let go by when certain people pop in and out. Fine with it. Excited. Positive chat. I'm excited for Dynamite. Collision was great. AEW's good right now. Good.
Well, we'll forget about Rampage and we'll move straight past that because that's what most people do. But
didn't pay any attention. I did on it. I couldn't get into that. Chris Daniels was on there for some reason. I don't know why. I swear he retired. I
put it on and I saw it and I went, nah, I can't be arsed with this. Is where I was with it. But I think, again, just one final thought. Our whole thing was, I suppose, with the MJF and our disillusionment with that entire storyline was, this Swerve Hangman stuff's really good. It'd be great to have the title in the picture. And guess what? That appears to be what's happening. And you go, great. I can't really have a problem with that because I'm kind of being given what I want. And they haven't lowered on the kind of intensity stakes at the same time. So, yeah, long may it continue. Looking forward to Dynamite. It'll probably do a bang average rating. But do you know what? That's not the point. I think it's about them doing a bit of kind of good fan service and delivering on it. Yeah,
definitely. Yeah, and this thing, throw a nitpick in. There's too many fucking belts still. There you go. I said it. Trios belts suck. They should merge them. We've said all our talking points. Genuinely, somebody said that on Discord this week. Remember when Orange Cassidy had that really exciting international title run? This one hasn't been that, has it? I love those rankings graphics and go, if there was one I'd delete it, it'd probably be that.
Yes.
Can't have it all. But yeah, good show. Gonna say any other AEW new? Like I said, we expect the Mercedes announcements. Oh, you stuck it here. Actually, you throw this one on. I won't throw up on screen because 401 will break my computer.
Yeah.
There's been gigantic news, they're not, JP.
Oh, there is. AEW Fight Forever is now available for the low price of $30, which I'm pretty sure you would have been able to get on discounts from various retailers anyway before this point. But yeah, officially gone down at that point to $30. That's not really a sign of success. We're trying to offload copies at this stage, at this point in time as well. Yeah, it is like, if you want an idea of it, 2K23 is available for $14.99. This is $14.99 and like over $29.69 on Steam as well at the same time. Yeah, I don't know why you buy it. Like at this stage, they haven't added anywhere near enough stuff to this for what feels like still a very kind of incomplete game. You played much more of it than I do, and I bought like a deluxe version of it, and I'm really wondering why.
I got it for free. Like, it wasn't even my copy, but like obviously I played the media copy, and I was still complaining. I don't think it being 20, the price is necessarily the problem. I think any price, it was clearly an unfinished game. But yeah,
half price.
I had that hope. I had that like, but it's the bare bones of a really fun engine. They'll work on it. They haven't, and there's been no clear release strategy. It's not been clear like which wrestlers you can get now. You can't. Which wrestlers are ever be updated and which ones aren't. Yeah, they're just it's dead in it. It's like, who talks about AEW Fight Forever? There's probably no Twitch gamers playing it. I don't think they were at last check. Anybody out there? But yeah, it's. I don't think the price drop is going to help. But there we go. Are
we going to get a second one?
I think they need to start again, maybe.
I think so.
That's the only way out, isn't it? So I'm just buying some time because we might have a breaking news story to mention. Before I get to it, actually, just quickly, did you see? We throw it in for play the hits, JP, for the kids, for the old time's sake.
Oh yeah.
Saw Rover share on Twitter that I think Meltzer said it last week. The Wembley attendance stuck at about 39,000. Hasn't quite hit 40. Big Dave doesn't expect it to go up any higher until nearer the time. Seems to have kind of stopped growing. Any thoughts? That's not the breaking news.
I think that is the kind of lull. We spoke about it at the time with ticket sales for this. We're going to see peaks and troughs. And I think we had the initial rush, and then that slows down. And I'm still sticking by 65, and I'll be all right with that. We're going to get various other points where maybe they start sending a few people over to the UK in order to publicise, doing a bit of a media tour. I'm not going to hold my breath for that to happen because it's AEW, and I think we'll have a little push there. And then when they start announcing matches, and you get into the mix, Ospreay.
It's made me think about it a little bit differently because I think in my head I was like, they've done so well early, it's just going to keep happening. But of course, this is going to happen. Of course, there's going to be a point where they hit the ceiling. 40,000 is probably the ceiling of the people who were just going to go no matter what. They might actually have to put some work in now to get over the line. And actually, maybe I was counting chickens on AEW's behalf a little bit early there as far as guaranteeing they were going to hit the numbers of last year. Sorry, again, I know we're early. I know it's a classic, but I don't know, just give me a little bit of pause that it seems to have just stalled. But yeah, when you think about it, of course, naturally that's going to happen.
Yeah, I think they would I've got a bit more faith because this is still something they're plugging, that they think of this as their big show. I think they looked at the buy rate, they looked at the crowd, they went, right, the Sting show is going to be a very distant second when it comes to attendance this year for this one, and that they have to kind of build it for that. And they've got things in mind, and obviously, clearly, a Will Ospreay would come into the mix. So you imagine Jamie Hayter would do if she's available and return by that stage as well. That those are going to be the kind of big things in there as well at the same time. So I'm still bullish on 65, but like I say, they're going to have to do the work. But I think they might well have got it this time round, that they can't do the let's fuck around with Northwest wrestling law. We can't be doing that for a fucking week, 4 weeks out from the biggest show that they'll ever possibly run in their lives.
Just gets more and more ridiculous, that idea, isn't it? The more you see Nigel on commentary. As much as I'd enjoy it, no. 60,000 is my revised guess, JP. But yeah, the breaking news that's just coming through. Might be big, might not. Seems big, JP. ESPN Fox and Warner Brothers Discovery are forming a joint venture to launch a streaming sports service in the US. Thank you to Triseli for bringing it to our attention. Went up an hour ago, this mate, coming fall 2024. Of course, in the list of what it will include: NFL, NBA, WNBA, NASCAR, FIFA World Cup, cycling, and much more. I mean, I would guess maybe the rest of it and much more, JP. But there we go. It's been a kind of expectation over a while that WBD we're going to get into this game, but apparently ESPN, Fox, and Warner Bros. Discovery would like to form a new joint venture to develop, launch, and operate a streaming sports bundle of linear networks. So including the existing channels, all three of those have all on one streaming service. Each entity would own a third of it. Service would have a new brand, new name, with an independent management team. Any initial take on that, JP?
I think it's a good shout on their part. What is the hot TV property, as I like to bang the drum on it? It's sports. So what do? You get what's the most expensive property to acquire? Sports. So what do? We're going to bundle it up in. We've had a version of this necessarily with, like, say, Sky Sports, and we've had 10 separate channels, all of which catering to different kind of niches. I see them doing the same for this. So they would have like a combat sports channel for TK, like, and whether or not AEW fits onto that. The complication.
There's even a list, JP. Sorry, there's even a list. All the different types of sports: college sports, golf, cycling, soccer, and it lists all the different types. Bundesliga gets a mention. Combat sports, UFC, Top Bank.
Yes. Yeah.
I guess for entertainment, is that what we're saying? Maybe AEW won't even be on it. Maybe it'll be an entertainment. Maybe it's a contract thing. That's not settled yet, is it? That's still in flux.
It's. I think that this is the kind of thing that certainly Warner Brothers Discovery, in order to kind of share the rights, particularly for like NBA, like that's like that would have been a thing that would at least. They'd be imagining you're going to get quite a high kind of buy up for it. And I don't know, like, I'd be kind of, I'd say, it's hard to be optimistic about any kind of streaming service. And I know probably Will Cooling, I imagine, is writing an article as we speak saying what a stupid idea it is for them to do this now. They're going to be losing loads of money. But there's a part of me which thinks, like, I look at this and I go, well, actually, like, you're getting so much sport, and these sports channels rely on getting loads of niches from lots of different places. And AEW can fulfill a niche that none of these other things are doing, where you use AEW content in order to kind of attract like a few, few subscribers away, and you get those little niches from different places. They'll look at like the Raw deal on Netflix and think, oh, actually, we need to have some wrestling on here. Here's some cheaper wrestling, which is largely, compared to WWE, non-problematic and controversial at this current moment in time. So they'll be able to get it. So I'd be expecting them to be on there. I'd be expecting them to push to be on there. Because you imagine, look at the entities involved. ESPN, within the US, absolutely enormous. That's a massive deal. Like Warner Brothers Discovery are a monster of a conglomerate. You've got Fox in there at the same time. You have a genuine, like, what are the sports that are missing from there that aren't on that list, that aren't going to be covered in some way? The Premier League is probably the one I would have thought, but then I'm biased in that regards. They've got lots of other stuff on there. So I'd be kind of optimistic. This has got a very different kind of, like, all the other streaming services have been about kind of entertainment content. And this one just being about sports.
That's entertainment, isn't it? Like, Max is, the sports on there, so I guess any sports will move off Max onto this.
Yeah.
But again, the wrestling angle, it's whether, it stays entertainment or becomes a sport. Yeah. I will say, JP, you were correct in our group chat. The private Brit Rez is Dead group chat's not called that, I promise. Will Cooling seems like a really bad idea. Of course he said that. I'd love to hear. Look forward to everything with Rich Fan, where Rich Fan sits there politely while Will takes an hour to tell you why it's a bad idea. Genuinely, I can't wait to play audio.
It'll be brilliant, and he'll convince me. But, like, I suppose there's that part of me thinking, do I think that Americans are going to buy massively into like a big multi-sport sort of TV package? I went, yeah. They love fucking sports over there, and they'll watch loads of it, and it's the hottest stuff on TV, as we'll see next week with the viewing figures from the Super Bowl, which no doubt will be bigger than last year and even more fucking bonkers.
I have to preview that on the weekend show this weekend. Forgot that was coming up this weekend. Well, there you go. Little bonus news story for you on the AEW side. If you know any more by the weekend show, as you say, JP, we can cover it a little bit in there as well. Should we move on to as you've coming out of Bushy Road slash Stardom? As did pop through that Bushy Road has cancelled the contract of Stardom founder Rossy Ogawa. At first, I don't think people were fully grasping what that meant. It was announced effective February 4th. They cancelled the contract. This came in an official filing from Bushy Road and Stardom. We then learned to follow this story through its timeline that the Rossy Ogawa was planning on launching a new wrestling company. Probably should have seen that element of it coming, but that was very, very quickly reported, JP, that was going to be it. And he did, in fact, put the message out himself to Tokyo Sports. That they put him. Apparently, the contract is terminated. They put him in a cab and sent him on his way. That's no way to send an old man on his way. Did say that he wants to start a new organization. Tied into that, we then had the follow-up story that Stardom president Taro Okada revealing that apparently several talents had expressed their intentions to leave the promotion, JP, on the back of this news, which would be the type of thing that tends to happen. And there's definitely history books you can read in Japanese that will tell you about similar stories like this that have happened over the years when there's such exoduses of talent. And on that note, as far as like talent that I think people on our side of the world are very aware of. It did also come out that WWE are expecting to land the services of Julia, and apparently the reason for the delay is, and the reason that hasn't happened yet, they've also said that she has a loyalty to Rossy Ogawa, who made it a big star in Stardom, and she wants to work with him to launch this new potential promotion. So there you go. She's going to be one of those names. And imagine having that conversation with WWE. I've got some business to take care of in Japan first, then I'll be over. Shows she holds a little bit of power in that negotiating, JP. But yeah, been a hell of a story this week. Want to help us make some sense of it? And what's your initial take on it?
He says, as his camera is coming back onto screen there as well, we're in those parts of the evening where it all starts to go to hell.
It's all good.
Yeah, it's all good for you. It didn't like some of the. I think it's those 411 Mania tabs that end up doing it. I think it's kind of like, in many ways it's very sad, because what you are going to end up ultimately seeing is a splintering, which has happened within Japan a few times. There'll be people who know a lot more in terms of the landscape in Japan and how this works, but really, I think a lot of things depends on this Ogawa promotion. Obviously, and if you've seen the Wrestlers documentary, he is kind of front and center of that, the one that Damian Abrams did several years ago in regard to like leading Stardom. But it was very much mum and pop. This wasn't a guy who had loads and loads of money behind it, and there were several things that he did that frankly felt very creepy in order to try and build the business up. Here, I'm like thinking, well, where's the money coming from for this? Because obviously they're going to be signing up people who, in that time in Stardom, have become kind of bigger stars. Who are the stars? Are we talking about? Like he mentions, like Mai Iwatani is the only one who's on a long-term deal to Bushy Road because there's a film coming out about her life this year, and therefore they've kept her on there, and she's very much like the kind of the big Stardom regular, and has got, this from the documentary yourself, that like there's a lot of personal loyalty towards Rossy Ogawa as well. I just think you're going to see a splintering of the groups, obviously, and that's going to then weaken the kind of talent pool. And it's not like Stardom have had a good year. Like, if we were talking a couple of years ago when Stardom, it felt like it was at its peak, and it felt like a very clear number 2 in Japan. I don't think we're going to be seeing that for a while. And I don't think Bushy Road have shown enough in terms of their integration to Stardom and making them into a much bigger company from what they've been in recent years. I'm not convinced. Like, there's parts of me here that think that this all ends badly for everyone and it not being particularly good as well. Tony Khan's response to it when he said all of the stuff where he was like, seemed like kind of
calling him a rat, calling him a mole.
Yeah. Like he's Todd Gordon in ECW, which then the other documentary speaks about, the Forever Hardcore one, the Todd Gordon perspective. He says, "No, I never did all this stuff. This is Paul Heyman bullshit." And you think,
"Oh yeah, you can imagine it, can't you?" Like, we just accepted that as real, and it was like, whenever you hear Todd Gordon talk, you're like, "Of course he got fucked over by Paul Heyman. Of course he's the good guy in the story. How did we all fall for that?"
Have they heard of Paul Heyman before? And they've heard him talk. Like, this is one of his MO, really, isn't it? At this stage, and he was like, "What's the thing that's going to babyface me to everybody else?" Well, I'm just going to say that he was he was joining WCW, which was considered a war crime at that stage in like 1996.
Would work with them and the WWF later on. But, share a birthday, by the way. Found that out today. Somebody put on Twitter, name a wrestler who shares your birthday. Googled it. Unfortunately, Boris Johnson comes up. That's not a wrestler, but still.
Yeah.
He did come up as well. So we're all born on the 19th of June. Me, Todd Gordon, Boris Johnson.
Yeah.
What a shame. Anyway, sorry. Stardom.
No, I just think of the fact that Stardom themselves and their president has said that a load of people are going to be leaving as well. I just think what you end up with is probably two weaker companies. One incredibly weak one with Stardom. Whether or not New Japan decide, well, you know, does the Stardom name have enough value? And this is really where, like, you know, and I expect, you know, Karen at some point will end up talking about this when we kind of see where the lay of the land lies with this. And I'm really, like, I'm not optimistic because they've not had a good year. They've lost a few people. They don't seem as attractive. New Japan don't treat them with a degree of seriousness now. They weren't on the Wrestle Kingdom show. There doesn't appear to be that kind of... We don't hear anything about another historic crossover show. And what would that even be at this point? So it just makes you think that... I don't think Rossy Ogawa's got like this endless amount of money to be able to launch this kind of like mega bucks Joshi promotion. And even though they've got the loyalty, like, really, what is that going to end up resulting in? Is it going to end up resulting in like kind of just generally weaker companies? So I think we're seeing very much the downturn of what was a kind of like mini Joshi boom that we've had for a couple of years.
Yeah, and it seemed like you were nearing the end of that anyway, didn't it? Like, there was definitely that point where we were covering it on the weekend show a lot. Oh, like, look how great business is right now. It was like a big talking point when Bushi took on Stardom, wasn't it? And yeah, those talking points have kind of dissipated a bit, haven't they, the last 6 months or so. So there we go. Quickly on other Bushi matters, unless you've got more on that, JP. We've got a couple of other things to cram in as well. Or any other New Japan notes before we move on? I haven't bothered with any of the Road 2 shows. We'll be doing a preview at the weekend of New Beginning with the Akada Swan song. But yeah, anything on the build to it?
I think in terms of the other build up to it, obviously it's going to be a War Games rules match for Will Ospreay's last match in Japan as well. So it's going to, So it's going to be properly like kind of like War Games in there as well, like, which is at least like kind of a novelty. Very much the gimmick bloody promotion at this stage, aren't they? New Japan. So that's going to be
weekend in it, the Osaka show. Yes, that on that too.
And we'll be talking about that on the weekend show as well there. So that's going to be kind of interesting. They've got another stipulation match, which is Yota Tsuji versus Yuya Uemura in a hair versus hair match, which seems to be chucked out for shits and giggles. Not really.
You better win that. Can't cut that luxurious hair. I mean, either of them, to be honest, actually. There's a win there. We all lose. Like, what's going on?
Yuya Uemura feels like he definitely can carry on the bald look.
Yeah.
Like, I think more so than Yota Tsuji, you leave his fucking hair alone. Don't have any of that stuff on there as well. Something that I did want to see, I saw a tiny bit of, and I didn't get around to seeing all of it. I do want to watch it for next week, but it's getting a lot of kind of praise, is Gabriel Kidd versus Hinare, which is one of the matches on the weekend show. We said, actually, like, there's some intriguing matches that's come from this Road to New Beginning show at Korakuen. And it's got, like, you know, some very big kind of ratings in the meantime. So on certainly on like cage match, like review wise as well. So I look forward to it. Effectively, it felt like these two lads doing an Ishii match, but just with younger versions, obviously, of Ishii, which is like, yeah, this is what your mid card should be completely about here. This is the role that these two lads can end up filling, of just a couple of kind of no nonsense shit kickers in the middle of the card, and in front of a Kurikan crowd that kind of loved it. It was the weird thing. I like switched it on because there was a show on, and I thought, I'll have a look at this. And I saw a bit of it, and I was like, this looks really fucking good. And then the little man was kicking off, so it was like, yeah, I can't really sit down and devote the time to this that I would have hoped for. But yes, I hope to catch up on that possibly for next week.
Good man. Well, something we both got in just before cut-off time. Really, was it fresh on the VOD? Kind of related. Rev Pro, they're live in London. 82 show from the weekend at the 229. Did have Minoru Suzuki on it, so there you go. A little bit of a slight crossover there, but probably more notably, Will Ospreay coming to the end of his indie run, allegedly, did do an appearance and do a head-to-head angle with Michael Oak, who we can talk about. But yeah, from a match point of view, the matches I saw, like I say, I saw Suzuki and Leighton Buzzard. Continuum of praise of Leighton Buzzard from seeing him on previous 229. It was one of those, we said that on the weekend show, if you were there, you'd have probably been really into this. Like, I get to see Suzuki do his match. Like, I was genuinely like, I'm sick of these on VOD, but if you gave me an option to go and I was able to get to London that weekend, of course I'd want to see it. Of course I'd want to sing along to Suzuki's thing. I'd laugh at all the young boy spots and all of that. But I didn't expect him to give Leighton Buzzard much. And he gave him a fair amount. Like, it was actually quite surprising. Like, I'd seen as well a couple of reports. I think people were watching the live stream on the Discord where people had kind of said, "Oh, here we go, Suzuki doing his going through his normal tricks and not giving the young boy much." But I thought he gave him a fair amount. He bumped for him. I don't know why Honky Tonk Man's on my brain, but it wasn't a Honky Tonk match. It was your Minoru Suzuki match where you've just got to slot your stuff in, but he gave him, a couple of near falls, couple of big bumps, gave him respect on the microphone at the end of the match as well. Did his stupid thing where he throws him over the top rope and all that, because he's got to protect the Minoru Suzuki character. But you could just tell he kind of rated this Leighton Buzzard, who's obviously got his own Japan pedigree. He's just come back from a tour, hasn't he? All Japan is it he's been with. He looked good. He's a really good shitbag heel. But he wasn't as much of a shitbag here as I thought he was going to be. It wasn't, God rest his soul, Mad Kirk getting, blown through by Minoru Suzuki, which was obviously the right call in that scenario. This was more of a back and forth match. And yeah, I don't know what you made of it, JP, but I thought Leighton Buzzard showed that he really has got something, and it's something different for someone who doesn't really get used by the English promotions. I know our Scottish friends have raved about him in the past, but yeah, he's relatively new to my eyes, and yeah, really enjoying the act.
So I must confess, I haven't seen this match. I've seen the first half of Live in London, but I haven't seen the second half of this. But it's been kind of like similar things to what you had said about it as well, and the fact that he gave him like he went 20 minutes with him. Like, if Minoru Suzuki was squashing him, it goes less than kind of 10. But it appeared to be like there was a degree of effort for it as well, and I think my big kind of takeaway from like having a match like this on the card is the success of how these 229 shows are going, that they're actually having like a Minoru Suzuki match on there as well. Because you kind of think to yourself, like, we've seen Minoru Suzuki in all different kinds of scenarios. I don't think he was ever at the cockpit, or certainly not to the best of my knowledge. So you get him in a 229, you get him in a small kind of environment, and that's fun in and of itself, of only a couple of hundred wrestlers. And I'm kind of like happy for that to be the case.
But in France, Suzuki, weirdly, I don't know what his tour was he was doing, but I saw like a photo. It was him, Joey Janela, Kushida. Can't remember who else. Trent Seven. It was like, what a gang! Like, I might have to include that in one of the images. All having a couple of pints together with some what looked like a French wrestler sat with them. So he was out on the piss. But like, if he's in Europe for a bit, like, this was a perfect booking for a program in there. Like I say, you can go over Leighton Buzzard. Leighton Buzzard loses nothing, but I think he felt like he gained Suzuki's respect in the match. Probably because he's got that experience of working in Japan, and also, felt like I don't think the audience are going to take anything away from Buzzard, because he definitely held his own, both his character and as a in-ring worker.
He was wrestling for Banger Zone Wrestling against Igla Blanc, the mass bloke. Yeah, I'm seriously, Banger Zone Wrestling at the Salle Jacques Brel in Fache-Thumsil, France. I don't know where that is at all, but I'm bloody I fucking wouldn't mind at this point. I'm going to the Banger Zone for a weekend. That can sound bad in the wrong context, can't it? But just to say, Leighton Buzzard was in Big Japan. Is where he was wrestling there as well. But the fact that he's having quite what feels like extended tours out there and wrestling for like Tenru Project as well. Like, I mean, he's been out there for like a couple of months as well. This is like the early stages of him clearly being a bit of a big deal in Rev Pro, and the next one on the conveyor belt where you go, this is going to be one of their like featured kind of guys. And he's being put in, if nothing else, they're prominent spots, even if they're not always spots where he's going to end up winning. There are things where you're going to come away remembering him. And like, even as this match being announced, I was like, okay, this is intriguing. Just seeing him being put into this kind of situation, like, I think adds a hell of a lot to that. So yeah, good luck to him.
Well, I really enjoyed that. I thought that was, better than advertised. I'm glad I ended up watching it because, there are the Suzuki match you can imagine in your heads, but I felt like this was a little step above that. But yeah, the other thing I really enjoyed, I know you did see, and again, not one I would have expected, but there was a bit of buzz coming out of the show with it, both on our Discord, and I got a message or two about it as well. Connor Mills and Trent Seven. Like, don't fast forward. That might immediately make people go, fuck off. But honestly, it was good. Like, it was really good. I've obviously not been paying attention to Connor Mills. Now I get why he's working Zach at the big show coming up in Crystal Palace. Like, really good from him. He held his own. Absolutely. I know it's Trent Seven, but like, as a heavy duty, hard hitting match. And to be fair to Trent Seven, anytime I've seen him in Rev Pro or over in the UK, you would think former WWE superstar Trent Seven might dog it or might not quite put the effort in that you might want, and you could probably get over on charisma and just get by. I'm not saying there hasn't been shows where he's done that, but the ones I've seen in ring, like we said at the Copper Box, he's put a shift in, and he put a shift in here. It was a really, really fun match. As far as like the back and forths go, great near falls in there as well. That definitely, gave it a little bit more, some good leg work in there. Probably not leg work that will pass the Jamesy or the Grapple Gareth sniff test, but it was in there. There were, but all in all, it felt like a proper heavyweight main event style match for like the first half main event here. Yeah, and I think Connor Mills definitely felt more of a man than I've ever had him for when I've watched shows. He's always felt like a bit of a boy, hasn't he? In the past, maybe it was the legitimate hard way cut that he had that kind of added to it. But like, yeah, in going over strong as well. I think that was a statement of intent and beating Trent. And I think that's a good spot for Trent to be in, to put over somebody like this. It gave him a lot of legs going into the big show coming up at Crystal Palace. And yeah, I thought he looked. There was a scene at the end of the match, JP, where like he was just sat there. I almost wish he'd soaked in it a little bit more, but he was sat there with like under his eye bleeding, almost looking shocked at the reaction because the crowd were giving it a standing ovation because they knew they'd just seen something special. And he just had this look in his eye, like he felt like a bit of a hard bastard. He felt like a proper wrestler for the, I shouldn't say for the first time. We've enjoyed Connor Mills' work when we've talked on this podcast, but it really felt like a different Connor Mills than maybe I imagine in my brain or got used to seeing. And yeah, like I don't know what's caused it, but yeah, it's come at the right time. Love the new look with the new hair and such as well. And yeah, I was blown away by this one, JP. Really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I'm like you as well, and I think just that edge, just that punt from Trent Seven that caught him under the eye, that all of a sudden it looked horrible. It looked horrible. It sounded horrible. Like, I mean, Gideon Graham commentary, you could just Jesus Christ.
He was great.
Like he's tremendous. That's the commentary team you go with. Go with him and Andy at this stage. They're the people you go with, like all of the way. It works completely for that. But the Connor Mills storyline with him effectively being like it is feel like him kind of growing up, because I think when we first saw him, we first saw him in like Progress shows, and he'd be the guy with the dreads who was very much kind of doing flippy indie style moves with a Z, but they weren't enough to kind of really grab your attention necessarily, because there's always people doing kind of more distinctive stuff here. Here, dare I say, it feels like he's filled out a bit more. He's kind of away from that into the kind of like more serious division. I think there's always the storyline with him and Oku, which is going to be like something that they're going to get to, I could see, in 2024. And I think this is going to end up being like the kind of like quite a big year for Connor Mills, because he's been around a lot for Rev Pro, and because he's become that steady kind of fixture, he quite often doesn't get that sort of place to shine. It's always set up for someone else to have that. And it was very much for him. Now he's getting that kind of like that big moment on here. And like say, he's getting Zach, you know, which is going to be big for him as well. And, you know, I've seen long Connor Mills matches before where I've been like, oh, okay, this is needlessly long. But I think the way it went to the outside and the surprising viciousness of the outside of, like, you know, throwing Trent into all the chairs and then the double stomp off the top into him lying down on the chairs was just like fucking nuts at the same time. I just thought
I wanted to talk about that. What a fucking spot, like, for the TC now. Like, it was terrifying. So, like, I know the people who won't see this match, you should, but like, yeah, it was a double stomp off the top to Trent, who was on some chairs, like in the crowd. Like, the distance there, again, credit to
not
Trent,
front row,
yeah,
second,
like
third row,
maybe even fourth. Like, it was proper. Like, if you're Trent Seven, like, again, a lot of praise for him today. God bless him for being willing to take that, because it's hard to work that. There's a lot of distance coming down, and yeah, the double stomp pretty much took Trent, hit him perfectly. Oh, it's beautiful. Really, like, got genuinely. I said, like, it got a physical reaction. I think it stood up. I was like, holy fucking shit! I don't think there's a match this weekend that got me to do that. It was this from the TC now.
That's it. Yeah, I was like, fucking hellfire. Like, it was a nut spot, because I saw it, I was like, oh my god! Like, I didn't think he had that kind of spot for it. Because I won't lie, when I first initially saw the buzzbang, I was like, again, like I said before, 23 minutes. This has got to be good for it to be worth 23 minutes of my time. It doesn't feel like 23 minutes at all. Like, I think there's just enough intensity and enough kind of viciousness. And it feels like we're going to be seeing, this is the Connor Mills we're going to be seeing for a lot of the year. He's moving up that card, which, again, this is the really great thing about Rev Pro, is like the way, and it, you know, this is the stuff they do so well, is promoting guys like that who basically are their guys from within, and they're kind of meaning something, and using a Trent Seven in the kind of correct way to put people over. He put over Michael Oku before. Now he's gone face again. He's putting over Connor Mills. Yeah, like, fucking hook this shit to my veins.
Definitely. People will hate the other notes I had on the match, the Burn and Hammer kick out, but it wasn't even a real Burn and Hammer. And it's Trent's move. It was a one-count kick out, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I know the fans that'll hate that. But it worked in the moment, and it worked for being that normal move. And again, you can argue he didn't hit all of it. Whatever. It was fine. Great performance for him. It was one of those where, as well, like, I just assumed like he wasn't winning at that point. He did, and I guess he should. Logical booking with the Zach match coming up. But yeah, we'll be previewing obviously high stakes properly when it comes to the weekend show next week. And yeah, Mustafa Ali, Robbie X on there, Zach Connor, as we said, Luke Jacobs, JJ Gale, Shingo, Gabe Kidd, Danny Luna, Sapphire Reed, and Oku Ospreay on there. We should talk Oku Ospreay. They had a segment on this show. It was mostly good. It was a bit long. It was like 20 minutes. But they said all the things they needed to say. They built it up as a big match. The story is there. You know, Oku's the guy who's been in, you know, in the trenches this entire time. Ospreay trying to take credit for, you know, coming back, and there's truth in there, you know, saving shows and saving Britt Rez at times when he really didn't have to. But like the headline to come out of it, the stipulations are leaning on, based on obviously the previous match that got all of those plaudits. Is there's going to be no stoppages in it, other than Amira apparently can be the one to allow a towel to be thrown in. So they were leaning on the Oku Amira relationship. She was a big part of the promo there. she's great in a role. I don't know if she was great in this promo segment, unfortunately, but a lot of passion there. I'll give her that. And yeah, she's very good at being Oku's second. And maybe there's a heel turn coming. I think I've seen a lot of people kind of allude to maybe that's coming, and maybe that's why they're doing that and they're leaning into their relationship side of things. But they made the biggest job they did, and she's included in that. Oku's included in that. Ospreay's included in that. They gave a lot of doubts as to what the finish is going to be at high stakes. Because I've been picturing in my head, Ospreay wins Summer of Ospreay in the Indies, and he never fucking goes away. They specifically said, and this could be a red herring, if Ospreay wins, and this is perfect timing because Rev Pro got the Revolution Rumble coming up at York Hall, which I'm going to be at this Crystal Palace show. Kind of want to be there too because I love a good Rumble when it's done well.
Oh, yeah.
The last one got rave reviews, but the belt will be on the line there. And Ospreay basically said, you need to prove to me, you need to actually beat me to prove that you are the guy to take Brit Rage forward, that I am leaving it in safe hands. Because if you don't beat me, you can put her up in the Rumble and we'll find somebody else to do it. And it was like, that was a really good line. I've seen people say it maybe tips it too much that maybe Ospreay's going to win. But I don't know. I think it might be a bit of a red herring, and it's making people think, okay, well, that's why there's a Rumble. I mean, but the belt wasn't on the line in the Rumble last year, so I think it's just clever booking for me. But definitely gave it doubt, and now I could see it going either way, 100%. And I'm quite excited for that. Could be an Oku heel turn, could be an Ospreay win in the Rumble, could be an Oku babyface win. They'll lean into the Amira stuff, which was fucking brilliant in the last match with them. To really add a lot to the drama. Yeah, I'm excited for it, and I genuinely don't know what they're going to do.
We've got doubt. And I think that's just the key for all of this stuff. We spoke about it earlier with like Swerve and Hangman. That's what we've had throughout this feud. We've had doubt, like close matches where we know it's predetermined, but we can kind of think of all of the different ways that they can get to the kind of finish and everything else. And we're doing the same thing here. I'm expecting an Oku heel turn at some point throughout the year. And I suppose we'll get into it more when we preview it on the weekend show. But it feels like a big show. The ticket sales look really good for this. Like they are like going to pretty much get to a sellout. It is going to be a hot crowd. Can I also give a shout out as well? I think on the quiet, and while it's not making, like, there are things about the production that have definitely improved. Like, and I think that's something that does need to be noted in terms of like kind of watching it. It's not all perfect, trust me, because they haven't got the kind of like big endless budget, but there definitely has been some kind of like minor improvements as well. But like you say, like just putting in that element of doubt, I was like, okay, I'm kind of like somewhat excited by. I'm somewhat excited by this, and the match was an absolute fucking cracker last time.
I want to clarify a second time as well. Like, I think Oku and Amira are a great act. I think Amira's great in general. I think the problem with their elements of the promo was she came across very heelish, and I don't know if that was the intent, but maybe it was, and I was being worked. But like again, like fantastic act, and overall the promo delivered what it needs to do.
I always think with Michael Oku, we're at the point with him in Rev Pro. What else? Like in some ways, we've done the Michael Oku mega babyface run.
That's what I mean.
Heel run is the thing to freshen it up, and a double turn with him and Connor Mills, where Connor Mills has kind of always been proven to be right. Of like, nah, don't trust you at all. You always steal the kind of spotlight from me and his big achievements, stuff that they've explicitly done at various points. You've got that into the mix as well. Like, and I think as well, if he loses to Ospreay, the idea of him perhaps cheating to win the Revolution Rumble in order to be the kind of champion again, to turn kind of like heel at that stage, that can also be a route to go down as well. But this is the thing about Rev Pro at the minute, is they're telling good stories. They're not massively complicated stories, but if we end up with a 2024 where on the face side we've got a Luke Jacobs, we've got a Connor Mills, where Ricky Knight Jr. fits into the mix as well with this, and Michael Oku on the heel side, the likes of a Leighton Buzzard, other kind of people that they're doing the work in there with as well. They're all really young guys that they're kind of working with. It's like, I don't know what the nearest comparison is. Maybe Leeds in the early 2000s, they had all the young lads before they pissed all the money up against all with Seth Johnson. But anyway.
Did they have them like this in the Leeds locker room? This is that photo I mentioned from the French locker room. You ever thought you'd see a picture of Trent Seven, Joey Janela, Minoru Suzuki Kishida having a pint at your favourite? Love it.
What beer are they drinking?
It's Mauer's
Stella
as well.
No, Kronenberg.
I can live with Kronenberg.
It's all right.
From the source, maybe not so bad.
If it was Stella, mate,
anyway,
I know it's Belgian beer, but like that would end up in just fucking. That never ends well.
There's better Belgian beers, definitely. But yeah, there you go. We'll be talking more Rev Pro, like I say, with the Crystal Palace show coming up. High Stakes. We'll be previewing that next week, as I alluded to last week. JP, High Stakes 2017 was our first ever review, and here we are in 2024 doing High Stakes 2024. Who knew we'd still be here? But on that note, who knew we'd still be talking about our next promotion? JP, is I'm sure you want to get some thoughts in before we go on the gigantic. Well, it doesn't even need to say gigantic. The super event from the weekend. MLW super fight, and you're on your own for this one, mate. I have not seen this.
Yeah, that's all right. That's all right. I
like Jacob's tattoo. I was right in the car. I'm warming the car up and ready to go, as he probably was outside the venue for his last MLW date, which was this.
I don't know. They announced another one. I would say that they did. That was the weird thing about that story. It said like, he's wrestled his last day in this, but it's like. Okay, they've announced because effectively, I say the big spoiler in the show, like he beats Yuji Nagata, like clean, and then Contra Unit comes back, and we've got fucking Mads Kruger, basically ISIS return in what looked like they were setting up a beheading angle where you remember Mads Kruger, the big bald guy with a mask called the Black Hand of Death on there as well. He had like. It looked like he was like basically looked like he was going to cut his head off. He was in that kind of position. He didn't. He just sit on the back of the neck with the fucking gimmicks cane, whatever it was. But they announced Contra back, and they had that like the kind of interference at the end of the Contra music. So yeah, ISIS running the show in there again as well. So that's going to be. I know, mate. It's all right.
The time up that his MLW rumbles on.
Well, do you know who else made an appearance? Cesar Duran. He also came back into this, and he was he was with Mystico. So they're having a Mystico versus Rocky Romero for the world middleweight title that they're going to be doing at like their kind of next big show as well. At the same time with them managing in each of the corners for it. It was an MLW show with all of the kind of MLW nonsense there. No Matt Striker on commentary. There was some other bloke. I'm trying to think of what his name is. I'll have to have a look. Oh, yeah. Christian Cole in there, his new broadcast partner, who was like, I didn't know who he was in there. He was okay. Joe Dombrowski just oversells everything like he always does, like it's the biggest stuff in the history of the world. But it had requisite kind of wackiness as well. There was a Don King appearance before the main event in there.
All started here.
Well, if I didn't know better, I haven't gone back and checked the footage, it looked like he spoke about Alex Kane in very nondescript, vague terms before, like, never mentioned Satoshi Kojima's name. That wasn't happening. And I'm pretty sure he's wearing the same clothes he did on all the other previous videos. So it just feels like another bit they've come out of him saying Alex Kane's going to win because he's got Bombardier. Which then made me start to think of, I've seen When We Were Kings, and I recently saw the Ali film because it was on BBC not that long ago. I don't think people were chanting Bombardier for Don King. I'm pretty sure they were chanting it for Muhammad Ali, unless I missed something massively about the Rumble in the Jungle there as well. But he wasn't there in attendance live. He's still in his office in that hostage video from there as well. Yeah.
On his camera.
And then Alex Kane came out with all the various lads and Faye Jackson and Mr. Thomas, and he lost to Satoshi Kojima, which normally I'd be bothered about.
Again,
like, I would be, except is at least lore and story to come back to that theme from the very beginning of the show, with Satoshi Kojima being the first MLW champion. And in fact, the reason why I liked MLW in the first place, because he was cool, because he was in All Japan and New Japan, and he felt like he was the next big Japanese kind of guy. And he was then obviously famously had the meeting with Triple H where he said, I'm the MLW champion, to which Triple H said, what's an MLW? He fucking knows now after all those lawsuits. Oh yeah, completely different world. And it was a match. It was like, Satoshi Kojima's an old lad in there as well. It was generally fine. Like kind of, I would say most of the stuff on here. I won't lie, I didn't watch the Hoss fight match with Davey Boy Smith Jr. and One Cool Manders. I saw Davey Boy Smith Jr. wearing jeans, which means he's even more looking like the old fella in 99, kind of moving like the old fella in 99 as well. Like not in great nick there at all. There was a quite lazy hardcore match, I thought, with Sami Callihan and Akira, where Raven came out and turned face, protecting Akira with some of the weakest kendo shots at the end once Sami Callihan won, who is massive these days. He looks in terrible shape. Like, he really doesn't look good at all.
I think he's had some health issues, but
yeah,
wrong either. Like, it is kind of shocking when you see him. Yeah, considering where he was in DNA a couple years ago.
Yeah, he's not in a good way. The best of the actual matches is the Rocky Romero versus Ichiban, of which I've just noted on here that Rocky's had a hell of the last couple of years in this kind of heel role and having decent promotions, but the CMLL run in general has reinvigorated him, and he tends to go out there and have the best match. Now, the best match on an MLW card is basically about 3.5 stars, and that's what he had here. So, did you miss much by not seeing it? No. Did MLW do MLW things? Absolutely. Do they continue to plod on? Yeah. Is the match striker getting rid of him a good shout? Yeah. Will I remember anything about this? No. Like, within a week. I think the only blessing was that the Von Erich boys weren't on it as well. They're better off.
I want to see them now.
You say that in your head, watch their matches. They're a fucking shambles. We like to think those world-class matches are shambolic back in the day. Fuck me. All over the shop. They are. They went on the card as well. Eugene Ogowa was on it. Yeah, he came out at the end and he thanked Satoshi Kojima. But yeah, there you go. So as you were saying, that's MLW.
Well, on that note, just quickly before we get out of here, we ran over a little bit. A few other quick news notes did want to mention. Sorry, you included there, JP. Accra's girls, but Asai has passed away. JP. Yeah, you've any thoughts on that one?
Oh, just shocking. It's more about the age. I can't say I've seen her wrestle before, but she was 21. And all it was said, from the promotion itself, was Actress Girlsy is that passed away due to an unexpected accident on there, and they've cancelled their shows in the meantime. I think they've got a link with All Japan. I think All Japan have had some women's matches involving stars on there, but yeah, 21 years old. Absolutely shocking. What appears to be a tragic accident.
Yeah. Really sad one. Other news story that's come out, Natalia saying she can't confirm or deny that the movie reports for a half family film. Could we see the next Iron Claw, JP? Is that coming? It's a hell of a story to mine, and it does seem like obviously there's been Rory Culkin involved as well, of Succession. Succession relation fame. Rory, he's not quite Macaulay. He's like the big car brother, I would say. Rory. He's not quite Kieran, but he fits in.
Stephen Baldwin, of the Baldwin brothers. If we were going to go into that kind of analogy, my main thought on this one is have it as a series, sell it as that, sell it as a TV series event, and do it that way. Because if you want to know our full thoughts, go to Patreon, listen to our Iron Claw review. There's so much story, and sometimes trying to fit it into the confines of a 2-hour film is not the way to go if you want to make the best use of it, particularly in the golden age of television and streaming TV.
Bret Hart's comments were funny as well. That was another thing that's doing the round. We don't usually do interview notes as rounds, but definitely enjoyed Bret laying it down. He basically hates chops, hates dives. He's it's one of them. Bret's actually got a bit of logic when he talks about his wrestling. And while it might sound like a bitter old man, I do also enjoy that he managed to get a nice little shot at Goldberg in there about guys go back to the locker room and they got busted up chests and they've got black eyes and big lump on your head. That's Bill Goldberg wrestling, according to Brett. That's not the way it's done. You're supposed to protect your opponent, JP. Look, a couple of things in there that felt a little bit Disco Inferno, but overall, it's Bret Hart. Who are we to argue with Bret Hart? We have a retro podcast on this very network. We owe all our respect to Bret.
Yeah, exactly. Even if we have called somewhat of bullshit of like, well, was it really the kick that did it? I suppose he's ultimately going to know better than we are of it. If there's one person
says otherwise, mate.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, anyway,
I love his bitterness. Like, that's the thing that will always stick with me. It's the digs. Who's he having a dig at with the chops? Like, again, he'll always come back to Goldberg, and I love this about him. Generally, because he's more often than not, he's fucking right. He's pretty spot on. And I say he's done with bitterness. It's done with a smile on his face, knowing I'm just going to say whatever the fuck I want, and I couldn't give a shit about the consequences. And I love and admire Bret Hart for that, and I always will do.
Get an F in his wrestling academy when you do stuff like that. Something he did mention as well is that he does feel like Punk, and the likes of FTR have definitely brought him back to the forefront of people's minds. On that note, last little bit of breaking news that's come through while we've been recording. Apparently, prosecutors are pursuing criminal charges against Cash Wheeler, hearing set for the 20th of February. Obviously, the charge was aggravated assault with a firearm, aka being an American. This is where we throw in the Trump shots, JP, just for the YouTube out there. I'm just shocked it's a crime. I joke, I know it is, but obviously if he's waving as good at people in his cards, probably not something that should be encouraged. I wasn't shocked by it. I didn't expect it to get this far. We might have a Dax singles run coming, JP. I don't know. Any other takes on this?
Getting Garcia into the mix now. What? Just to legislate for the fact in case Cash Wheeler has to go away. If you think about the stuff that people get away with actually fucking shooting people as well, I find it hard to believe that with the money he's earning and the lawyers he can afford, he won't get anything more than a bloody slap on the wrist. It involves a gun, and they love guns over there. That can't be denied at all. They fucking love guns. I know. I'm tempted. Bring it on. That's all I'll say about this. Rather like the Trump stuff as well, in terms of him being corrupt. Because
somebody took issue on our YouTube. No one's going to get this far. Somebody took on our YouTube. They were like, "The Vince stuff is fine, but can you leave Trump alone?" It's like I feel like I actually don't know which is the bigger, lesser evil here. Either way, both cunts. Both. There's a reason for and Trump is relevant to the Vince story. Like, just to push back on that. Like, if Trump gets in, which it looks like he will. Vince is probably, going to be in better standing than he would be without his fucking best mate being the most powerful man in the world. Let's hope Vince goes to prison for a long time and Trump doesn't win. But that's the world I want to live in, JP. I'm not sure it's the world I do live in. Yeah.
I had them bringing up Hunter Biden on there as well. I was like, right, has he got any connections to professional wrestling? No. Right, then fuck off. Like, that was my immediate thoughts on this.
That doesn't stop us normally.
It doesn't.
I was going to interrupt your MLW talk because you mentioned the iPlayer and be like, you know what? There's actually a good selection of films on there, to be honest. Not that I would know, I've got the iPlayer myself, but
dare I say it? It's well worth. I find it's well worth the license fee, the iPlayer and BBC Sounds and the website and all the other goodness from there as well. But yeah. He's
enjoy Match of the Day and Gladiators this weekend, though. Very much. YouTube's a great thing. Anyway. On that note, there you go. That's your lot. You want more off-topic chat? Pre-show every week. Affectionately known as the Matty Edwards Show. You can catch that on the YouTube, on the Patreon. Like I say, $3.99 Patreon tier. It'll get you the pre-show, the live spotlight, the weekend show, and replays of them. Just not the other stuff. But if you want the other stuff, pay a little bit extra or join us on the Patreon. Dealer's Choice Month is coming, all that good stuff. And if you haven't already, listen to our Iron Claw review if you get to see it this week in the UK or when it officially comes out, which I believe is Friday. Don't forget about us. Go back, give it a listen. One of the better ones we've done. Anything else to throw out, JP?
No, it's all roads lead to Dealer's Choice Month on the Patreon, patreon.com/grapple. And you mentioned it before, youtube.com/@grapple if you want to see other shows like we've recorded, like Time. And we're going to have Retro coming out this month. So it's an absolutely bumper time to get on board. So sign up over there. He says, I'm amazed my voice has lasted this long, mate. Honestly, I'm genuinely. Yeah, it is, isn't it? It's like, and honestly, God, I thought my vocal cords were going to give out several times, and many apologies for me blowing my nose earlier on into the show as well. It was like fucking hell.
Now that I didn't know. Enjoy, folks.
Yeah, leave it in there. British shits in you, a bit of reality.
There you go. That's it. The things we fight through for this. So hopefully JP feels better. But yeah, thank you JP for fighting through, and thank you live patrons for tuning in and sticking with us this long. We will catch you again for Spotlight next week, weekend show, Dealer's Choice Show 1. Looking forward to that and all of the other good stuff. But in the meantime, take care, folks. Have a good week. We will catch you again next week.
Bye.
It's